All right, guys, welcome to Press X Podcast, episode 112. Thank you all so much for being here and waiting patiently as the credits roll. I have a new format that I'm using for the podcast. Figured we could just go with it, see what it's like. Personally, I think it should help improve the viewing experience for a lot of people. There are quite a few people who have requested that I bring the chat up so that they can see it when they're actually watching the video. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. I also have more screen real estate in general to work with this way. So yeah, let me increase that just a little bit. There we go. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Always appreciate it. We do the weekly podcast here every Sunday, and yeah, you guys show your support in force. I mean, before I even come on screen, we have oftentimes well over 250 people, sometimes over 300 people waiting, which is really nice to see. Definitely humbling. So as always, thank you guys for the support. I really couldn't do what I do here on YouTube, and certainly not these podcasts. I couldn't do them without your continued support. So we have a lot of different topics to discuss today. We have obviously the state of play. We're going to have to talk about the state of play, but there's a lot of other conversations surrounding Sony and PlayStation right now. And what's going to be happening over the course of the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to give you guys a rundown of some of the topics that I plan to discuss over the course of this episode. But before I do that, I want to let you guys know, those of you who, show up each week, but also maybe anybody here who's new or, we do gain some new subscribers, some new viewers each week. I want to let everybody know some ways you can help support my content, my channel here, and what I do. Obviously, just watching the content, as I always say, is the most important. That's the most important statistic. That's what YouTube cares about. How much time are people spending watching your content? So you just being here watching and hanging out with me, that's the most important thing. If you want to do a couple of extra things to go above and beyond, you can hit the like button. YouTube's algorithm picks that up and helps share the podcast out to more people, so we can hopefully continue to grow our awesome community here. And then if you really want to go above and beyond, you can become a channel member. Shout out to all of my channel members. This is a way you can support me on a monthly basis, and you get a nice, little cool badge next to your name. But also super chats. Obviously, super chats are a big deal. Anytime I live stream, they go a very long way in helping me out here and allowing me to continue to do what I do. I'm gonna adjust my camera just a little bit here because I feel like I'm a little bit too close to the screen there. So maybe that should be good. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. All right, so right off the bat here, guys, make sure you hit that like button. We have the Brownie Bro saying, though excited for RE4 Remake and Callisto, season if looking for a real gem, a relaxing yet intriguing adventure. Gotta support indie devs, day one buy for me. Yeah, I have to admit, that's a game that I don't know that I'm super interested in. I don't know that is the type of game I'm going to play. The reality of my situation these days is I'm having a hard time finding time to sit down and play some of the games that I want to play. Something that a lot of people have been asking me to play for a while now is Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, and I'm happy to report that I did buy the game. Bought a physical copy of it. I think it was on sale. So I'll have that for my collection. And I haven't played it yet. Baby steps, right? I bought the game. It's installed on my PS5. I'm just waiting for the right moment to sit down and play. Okay, let me see. So yeah, I'm gonna play that. Another game that I am interested in because I've been hearing pretty good things about it is Sniper Elite 5. So that's a game I'm probably going to play at some point. But yeah, that's pretty much it for right now. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake will probably keep me busy for some time. Apparently, it's a very long game, and there is a lot of a lot of content there. So, um, but yeah, I you bring up some of the games that we saw at the State of Play. That's definitely one of the topics we're going to be discussing today. I want to kind of talk a little bit more about some of the games. About some of the games that we saw at the State of Play. Pragmatic Cat, you're saying you like it. You're saying you like the new format. I'm assuming, so I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, I'll be looking for some feedback. I like this new format too. Again, I think it's more screen real estate, and I think it just makes it overall just a little bit more interactive than it normally is. MBG, did you see the Ryan Hurst interview about God of War? I saw a couple of excerpts from the interview, and I think the important thing that I happened to come across was he just recently did his very final work on the game, which was for voiceover, not mocap, so just voiceover, which is a good sign that the game is, as we said, it's pretty much wrapping up, and that's one of the topics we're going to discuss today is God of War, because that is, I think, like the big question that a lot of PlayStation fans were asking after the State of Play. Even though Sony made it pretty clear that it wasn't going to be at the State of Play, it still leaves fans wondering, well, when are we going to see it, right? Like, when are we going to get God of War? When are we going to get a new trailer, a release date, a State of Play, anything? It seems like this upcoming week we're going to be hearing more from God of War Ragnarok. But yeah, we're going to talk about the State of Play. I want to talk generally about the State of Play, some of the conversations surrounding it, and then I also want to talk a little bit more about some of the games we saw now that we've had like time to kind of digest it and get more information on it. I want to talk about Summer Game Fest. Summer Game Fest is happening, I believe, this Thursday. I'm going to be live streaming that and live reacting to it, so I hope you guys will show up for that. It's usually a good time. I mean, it's Jeff Keighley's show. It's hard to tell, like, is he overhyping it? Is it actually going to deliver? I think we might be pretty happy with what we see during Summer Game Fest. We're going to talk about, and this is just something that a conversation I wanted to continue because it's something that people still bring up, and Digital Foundry made a video on it talking about a PS5 Pro and how it's really just like not a thing that should happen, and there's really no reason for it. And I found that video in particular very interesting because I've actually been on the opposite end. I've been saying for a while that I think a PS5 Pro should happen, and there are still some people who think it should happen. And after watching this video, it just kind of made me realize, you know what, I guess maybe a PS5 Pro this generation really isn't actually necessary unless the generation goes on for like 10 plus years or something like that. We're also going to talk about PlayStation Plus Extra and PlayStation Plus Premium, how it seems we're already beginning to see Sony's strategy with this, with this newly launched service. We're going to be talking about Take-Two Interactive, because apparently Take-Two Interactive agrees with Sony that launching AAA games into a subscription service simply isn't viable. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the PS5 hitting 20 million units sold, and how Sony is seemingly extremely optimistic about how well the PS5 is going to do this generation, which I think, for many of us is important. And then we're going to talk about the Xbox showcase that's happening next Sunday. I figured we could kind of talk about some of the things that maybe we are potentially going to see, or what we want to see, some of my expectations. It's interesting because I don't know how many of you are aware of this. I'm sure most of you are, but I'll say it again here. Next Sunday is when the Xbox showcase is happening. It's going to occur at the same time that I would be doing my podcast. So I'm not going to be doing a podcast episode per se. next Sunday. I'm going to be going live at the same time. I'm going to be going live at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll have about an hour to just kind of chat and kind of do what we would normally do for a podcast like we are now. And then the show starts at 1 p.m. Eastern. So an hour later, I'm just going to live react to it. And then we'll talk about what we just saw and what we watched once it's done. And then depending on what we see and what we hear about, I may end up actually doing a proper podcast episode on Monday or, later in the week. So we'll have to see about that. But that's how I'm planning on kind of doing it at this point in time. I think it would just be the easiest way to do that. I got a couple super chats here. Young G, thank you for the 10, buddy. You're saying, don't care what anyone says about my expectations. So I think Ragnarok will be at Summer Game Fest. And if not, well, then what's going on then? That state of play was good, but we want to know about Ragnarok. So yeah, that is one of the topics that I do have listed here, Summer Game Fest. And that's the thing, is we are hearing that God of War Ragnarok is going to be at Summer Game Fest. Now, we obviously have to take this with a pinch of salt. We can't say definitively that it's going to be there. I don't think it would be wise for anybody to absolutely anticipate God of War as in like, yep, we're going to see it for sure. We're going to get a new trailer and we're going to get a release date. I want everybody to kind of approach Summer Game Fest with a little bit of caution. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. But that, to me, not only does it just seem really likely at this point in time, but there are people saying that this is what they're hearing, rumblings. I'm not even going to name names because I'm going to be honest, it gets a little bit tiresome. It seems like each week we're talking about this individual and this insider and that insider. And I don't think it really matters anymore who's saying what, because if there's one thing that we continually see happen is, some people build a track record and then they also still get some things wrong and then they get some things right. And some people, they don't have a track record at all. They just either make stuff up or they get bad information. That happened to me. I don't want to say bad information, but like 50% bad information where, I was told Sony was doing a showcase in June. Turns out it wasn't a showcase. It was a state of play. And it makes me immediately question, like, whoever I talked to, they could have just been making a guess, and I kind of took their word on something where it's like, I could have made that guess myself, where it's like, oh yeah, they're doing something, and it ends up being a state of play. But getting a little bit off track here, God of War at Summer Game Fest makes a lot of sense because here's the thing. Summer Game Fest is happening before the Xbox showcase, and I feel like Sony wants to make a little bit more noise right before Xbox does their thing. And I think this is the smartest way to do that because the hype for God of War Ragnarok is going to remain consistent. By that, I mean, it's not like Xbox having a good showcase is going to reduce the excitement for God of War Ragnarok. And it also doesn't mean that if God of War Ragnarok shows up at Summer Game Fest with the release date, that it's going to negatively impact the Xbox showcase, depending on what's shown. If Sony decides that they're not doing a state of play, now think about this one for a second. If Sony decides they're not doing a state of play for God of War, but instead they decided to give like an 8-minute gameplay demo or something to Jeff Keighley, which I don't think is likely. I think that's very unlikely. But if they just decide to do something like that, well, then suddenly we're looking at some gameplay for God of War Ragnarok right before the Xbox showcase. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. My prediction, and what I think is very likely, is we're going to see a new trailer, possibly a mix of another story and gameplay trailer where you see kind of both blended together. And they're going to announce a release date of September 30th, 2022. I'm locking that in right now, and I'll reiterate this when we go live on Thursday. Release date for God of War Ragnarok on PS5 and PS4, September 30th, 2022. It's a Friday. That's the date. That's also my birthday. So that's kind of why I want that to be the date, because how cool would it be for Ragnarok to drop on my birthday? That would be awesome. Billy Too Smooth, thank you for the $10, my friend. You're saying, MBG, happy Sunday. I got to know your thoughts on Elden Ring. I know you played it. For me, I held off mad about how it affected Horizon. Horizon, yet I think it's a top 5 GOAT game. You think we got to wait till September? Well, to talk about Elden Ring for a moment here, I did play Elden Ring. I did beat Elden Ring. I put, I believe, about 90 to 95 hours into Elden Ring. And I mean, it's weird because I don't know that I feel as strongly about Elden Ring as everyone else does. Um, but I do think it is one of the better games I've ever played. I think it is one of the best games ever made. I mean, even just like from an objective standpoint, just objectively speaking, some of the things that Elden Ring has done and achieved in a video game, I think it easily earns its place as one of the best video games ever made. I just don't know that I feel as intensely about it as a lot of other people do because believe it or not, I actually, after completing Elden Ring, I was kind of comparing it to the Dark Souls trilogy and Bloodborne. And I just like the formula that From Software had with Dark Souls and Bloodborne more than I liked what they did with Elden Ring. But I do understand why Elden Ring is what it is. It was the next natural progression for that formula. I've said this before, but it's worth saying again is that, you know, do we need a Dark Souls 4? Probably not. Do we need a Bloodborne 2? I mean, that's debatable. I would say yes, we do, but from software. But putting that aside, what is the next step forward for this, this type of game, the formula that we see with the Souls games going open world? And that's the thing is From Software did a phenomenal job. They created an amazing open world and they did something that I think genuinely shocked a lot of people where they were just thinking, this could go sideways, this could go wrong because From Software has never done an open world game before, but they ended up making one of the best open world games ever. What it made me realize is that, sometimes I just do prefer more linear games over open world games. In fact, more often than not, I prefer linear games over open world. And yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I kind of discovered that I think I like the Dark Souls trilogy and Bloodborne games better than Elden Ring, but Elden Ring is still like God tier because to me, Dark Souls and Bloodborne are also God tier. But I do understand that for a lot of people, they like the extra exploration and that organic, just kind of roaming about and discovering things and having all this area to explore. There are people who do prefer that over linear based games. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Elden Ring. Still an amazing game, one of the best games I've played in a long time, obviously, alongside Horizon. And it does suck that Horizon again had to launch right before it. I don't think Sony or Guerrilla Games were prepared for just how much oxygen Elden Ring was going to suck up from the room in the conversation. But when it comes to when it comes to waiting till September, I think we're going to have to wait till September for a proper PlayStation showcase, like a real showcase where first party has a big presence. But I think in between that time, there's a pretty good chance we will get a God of War focused state of play. That could happen in June. That could happen in July. I think it could happen in August. I feel like August would be a little bit late, but God of War could come out in October or November. So August, I think, is also viable. But I think over the course of the summer, we will get both a dedicated God of War state of play and a showcase. But I'm feeling very confident. I mean, for what that's worth, probably not worth much, but I'm sure most of you understand why I'm saying this. I'm feeling very confident that a September showcase is going to happen. September at this point in time seems like the month that Sony chooses to go big when they are ready to go big. So thank you for that, Billy Too Smooth. Pragmatic Hat, we have a couple of super chats from you. Thank you so much for that. You're saying nobody is talking about 8K. PS5 Pro could improve textures or unlock the full potential of ray tracing, not resolution like the PS4 Pro did. Wouldn't people who were unable to get a PS5 be happy to get a Pro console for the same price as it was at launch when they're finally able to get one, especially if they may not have upgraded otherwise? In fact, I think a PS5 Pro console should come earlier along with a Pro controller. And I'll read your two other super chats in a moment because the first 3 super chats you sent focused on the PS5 Pro. Well, that's the thing is like, to be honest, I'm kind of torn on the idea of the PS5 Pro because I feel like people right now, if you talk about a PS5 Pro, people just kind of rage. And it's understandable why they do, because it really, at this point in time, and even for the next year or two, does seem pretty unnecessary. I mean, we just saw Guerrilla Games release their patch for Horizon Forbidden West. And I don't know if you guys have tried this, but they fixed the performance mode in Horizon Forbidden West. And the performance mode, it looks almost as good as the fidelity mode with double the frame rate. So clearly they've been working on this and tweaking their engine, and they had to spend a couple of extra months to really kind of mess with their engine for Horizon Forbidden West to see what they could do, and it really paid off. And it's like, when you look at that, yeah, you begin to realize that, wow, these developers are literally nowhere near being able to tap the full potential of the PS5. But the idea of a Pro, I think, just seems more like, in your case, Pragmatic Hat, you're listing some of the things that they could do, with textures and ray tracing. And I think that is true. But I think you also kind of have to ask yourself, like, how much of a need is there for that? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think the PS5 can already achieve like 8K textures to a degree, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, I feel like, wasn't that Unreal Engine 5 tech demo for the PS5? They said everything was like captured in 8K or something. But putting that aside, full ray tracing, yeah, that would be cool. But the thing is, could Sony create a Pro console like that is capable of achieving those things and still be able to sell it at just $500? That's one of the points that Digital Foundry brought up, is that the idea of being able to kind of really double your performance or significantly increase your performance and keep it at the same price, at this moment in time, with the way everything's working, it's going to be a tough thing for Sony to do. And if there's one thing we know that Sony will not do in 2022 or any other year after that, unless maybe it's the launch of the PlayStation 6, they're not going to sell hardware at a loss. Definitely not a significant loss. So I don't know. I mean, I think there will. I'm going to be honest, even though Digital Foundry made a bunch of great points that there shouldn't be a PS5 Pro, or not that there shouldn't be, but more along the lines of, it just doesn't seem right anytime soon, like in the next couple years, I still think at some point we might get one. But you also really have to try to take into consideration, how long is Sony planning to, this generation to last? For all we know, Sony might be planning to end the PS5 generation in like 2026. And that may sound crazy to people, but it's a possibility. But even if they end the generation like 2027, again, that's the thing we kind of have to realize about the idea of a PS5 Pro, is anything a PS5 Pro ends up offering, or anything it ends up being, will technically take away from what the PlayStation 6 could end up being. Because I'm going to be honest, if I had to choose between a PS5 Pro extending this current generation or a PlayStation 6, I don't know. That's a tough choice. I want to say I probably would just go with a PlayStation 6, but then again, Sony seemed to have a struggle transitioning to a degree from the PS4 generation to the PS5 generation, simply because they seem kind of torn on what they want to do. Do we want to charge for upgrades? Do we want to make upgrades free? What about backwards compatibility? Granted, with the PlayStation 6, most of this stuff will likely already be sorted out, because, Sony just kind of had to go through that with the PS5. But just some interesting things to think about. To be honest, I don't think anybody knows if Sony's going to do a PS5 Pro. And I don't know that it's really even worth diving into that deeply at this point, because that's going to be up to them. If they think it's a smart move, and it's I don't even want to say that it's necessary, but it's just a good business move and it'll be good for their sales and everything else, and it's viable, I think they'll do it. And again, I always kind of maintain this. If Xbox does a mid-gen refresh, which, come on, it's Xbox, it's Microsoft, they're going to do it. If they do a mid-gen refresh, I just don't see a reality in which Sony's like, okay, You do that, Xbox. We're just going to stick with the PS5. I don't see that happening. I think Sony would feel at that point like they have to also offer a mid-gen refresh. But it's also worth noting that with the PS4, Sony was the first one to do the mid-gen refresh. Sony did the PS4 Pro, and then a year later, Microsoft did the Xbox One X. So just something worth thinking about there. But your other two super chats, you say here, thanks for reminding me, MBG. I just bought Final Fantasy VII Remake Deluxe from eBay a couple of minutes ago. Delivery estimate between June 8th and June 11th. Yeah, so you'll have to let me know your thoughts when you play it, and obviously I'll let you guys know my thoughts when I play it. Pragmatic Cat, again, you're saying, I just don't like the art direction of Elden Ring. I think that's a fair criticism. I mean, I do think there is a distinctly different art direction for Elden Ring compared to like Dark Souls and Bloodborne. I've seen quite a few people, and I have to agree with this. I've seen quite a few people say that Bloodborne, from like an aesthetic standpoint, from a visual standpoint, like just, again, talking art direction, is definitely surpasses Elden Ring. Like, it's still the best. And I agree with that. I think Bloodborne, I feel like Bloodborne is always going to be viewed as one of the greatest looking games, not necessarily graphically. I mean, the graphics still do hold up mostly, but just from an art direction standpoint, I think Bloodborne is, again, one of those games where it shows you like art direction over graphical capability. You know what I mean? But also, this is why people want a remaster of Bloodborne, because like imagining like a native 4K or close to native 4K, 60 FPS Bloodborne with reworked textures to like really just get a much higher fidelity look. I mean, that sounds amazing. I hope that's something that's in the works. I think a lot of people are hoping that. And it's funny because Bloodborne fans were absolutely crushed, unfortunately, again last week. I did make a video on this. I just decided to take the video down because it was like, you know what? I don't know if this is news. I decided I'll just save it for the podcast. But there was a fake tweet from a fake account posing as the Nibelian Twitter account where they announced that Bloodborne remake, and they put the blog post and everything, and the tweet took off because people thought it was real, and people were losing their minds like, oh my God, Sony just announced Bloodborne remake, and it was discovered that nope, you guys just got played like a fiddle. And then on top of that, at the State of Play, Sony announces one of their big PlayStation games is going to PC. Bloodborne fans are like, it's happening, guys, it's happening. And it turns out to be Spider-Man. And then they're like, they just got absolutely crushed. I laugh, but I'm also a Bloodborne fan, so I was part of that. But yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. All right, let me see here. Blue Streak 320, you're saying Elden Ring is a great game, but most of the enthusiasm from it is due to it being a baby first Souls game. A baby's first Souls game. You know what's weird, dude? I would agree, but I don't know, man. For me, getting towards the end of Elden Ring, oh man, I was struggling. And I was over leveled too. Maybe I just have lost my touch with these games, but I really struggled with some of the ending bosses of Elden Ring. They were very tough, like much tougher than I was anticipating. But I do agree that like if you're somebody who I don't know if I agree entirely, Blue Streak, because Elden Ring still does that famous thing that From Software likes to do, where when you first enter the world, one of the first enemies is like a tree sentinel, big knight, massive axe or halberd on a massive horse, and you're like, well, I guess I'm supposed to fight this guy because he's right here at the very beginning. And no, they're trying to teach you like run away now because he's going to destroy your ass, and I do agree though that there are some aspects of Elden Ring that are certainly easier than the Souls games and Bloodborne, but I still think Elden Ring was a relatively tough game. All in all. So thank you for that, Blue Streak. Swizz242, you're saying PlayStation investing 55% into live services by 2025. Thoughts? It makes sense that they're doing this. here's the thing. I know people are pretty much telling me like I'm being naive in this mentality, and maybe I am, but I can't help it because I've said it before. Like, I'm willing to give Sony the benefit of the doubt. It seems to me that what Sony is doing in the live service sector is not like they are not attempting to take away from what they're currently doing, and more importantly, what they've been doing in the single player sector and with their single player franchises. Again, I need to remind people that games like God of War Ragnarok and games like Horizon Forbidden West, these titles, these massive AAA single player games with huge budgets that have no multiplayer, these games sell in like the tens of millions over time. Sony's not going to stop that ever. They're just not. Unless we reach a point where people stop buying these games, like if by the time Ghost of Tsushima 3 comes out for the PlayStation 6 or something, I don't know. Actually, we could definitely get Ghost of Tsushima 3 probably this generation. But like by the time that comes out, if it turns out people are just not buying these big budget AAA single player games anymore, they went from selling 8, 9, 10 million copies to now they're struggling to sell even 3 million, then we're going to have a completely different conversation. Because at that point, if Sony sees a drop in their single player game sales, but they're doing well with live service, you're going to see Sony transition from focusing on single player and big budget single player games to mostly live service. But again, that's only going to happen if we, the players and the fans, stop buying these games. It's just that right now Sony is focused on growth. Sony feels like that they have mastered this sector of gaming. And I believe Jim Ryan referred to it as a narrow sector, which it is. Let's be honest. The idea of these big budget AAA premium $70 games, it's a pretty narrow sector. You're not going to get the casual gamer to go buy a $500 PlayStation 5 console and then also buy a $70 single player game. That's just not what the casual gamer is going to do. Sony has benefited from a certain sector of the casual gaming market buying PlayStations just to play their Call of Duties, just to play their FIFAs and their Maddens, and that's fine too. And people still do that. But Sony wants to push beyond that. They know that they've reached, I don't want to say an upper limit with the amount of people who are going to go out and buy traditional hardware and buy traditional single player games, but the growth just isn't booming. You know what I mean? In 2022, it's still high. Like Sony, again, I have to kind of once again remind people, Sony is at the forefront. Like they are at the top, upper echelon of the type of success you can find with big budget, premium AAA single player games. But they just don't want to stop with that. They want to see, okay, well, how else can we grow the PlayStation brand? What's an area that we're weak in that seems to be a very popular area of growth in all of gaming? I know there are a lot of PlayStation fans who don't like live service games and they're not going to support them. And I already told you guys, if you don't like it, don't support it, send a message with your wallet, right? That's the only message Sony's going to receive. But that doesn't change the fact that this is a massive growth area in gaming. When live service games are done right, they succeed. And companies know this. The data that they're looking at, everything, like there's a reason why Sony is pursuing 50% live service or 55% live service by 2025. The growth in this area is off the charts. And Sony, I'm going to be honest, it is absolutely in PlayStation's best interest as a business to be part of that. Whether we like it or not, we'll have to see. I have no doubt that they're going to struggle in some areas with live service, but Sony knows where their bread and butter is right now. Sony also knows where their bread and butter could end up being if things change. And I just like to envision, as I always say, a healthy balance of we will continue to get big AAA single player experiences that only PlayStation can offer. Again, it's worth reiterating that a lot of developers who work at PlayStation are not going to want to abandon that, right? if Sony were to make a mandate where you can't make single player games anymore, yeah, a lot of developers are going to leave. They're going to lose a lot of talent because a lot of these developers who work at PlayStation Studios, this is where their passion lies. This is what they like making. They're storytellers. Even Herman Holst acknowledged that. So I wouldn't worry about that. They're always going to make those big single player games. And I see in the future a balance of having those. And then the other 50% are going to be hopefully quality live service games that are not malicious or egregious when it comes to monetization. And I mean, I think what Sony's going to try to do is they're going to try to leverage their current strengths and inject them into live service games. So I think a lot of the live service games that we're going to get from Sony, they're going to have content that you can play solo. Like you could play it co-op, but you can also play it solo. I think that's what Sony's going to go for. And I think that would be a wise move from Sony because that's what they do best, right? That's what they do best. So why not incorporate that into your live service games? Leverage that. So thank you for that question, Swizz. Zanarkand Blitzer, thank you for the 20, my friend. Really appreciate that. You're saying, MBG, did I hear right from the SOP stream that you finally bought Final Fantasy VII Remake after all my super chats and others recommended it? If so, we'll be here to help you, especially against bosses like Bahamut, I don't know how to say that, Wise and Jules. Well, it's true, Zanarkand Blitzer. I did finally buy Final Fantasy VII Remake. And it's funny because I'm hearing rumors, and I don't know if these are true or not, that apparently Final Fantasy VII Remake is about to be announced to finally release on Xbox. And I'm like, leave it to me. As soon as the exclusivity is over, I think I'll play it on my PS5 now. It's not that it matters, but it's kind of funny. We'll have to see if that turns out to be true or not. But yeah, as an Arcane Blitzer, I did buy Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, and yeah, once I start playing it and I dive into it, I'll be sure to let you guys know how my experience is and what my thoughts are on it on a week-to-week basis here on the podcast. So I know you're happy about that, Zanarkand, because you definitely sent me a lot of super chats over time, like really encouraging me to play it. You and many others. Severin Evans, thank you, buddy. You're saying, why is a PS5 Pro bad? More options is bad now. No, that's the thing. Like, keep in mind, there is a difference between saying it's bad, like it's actually detrimental. And this is where I think people do kind of get hyperbolic about it, where it's like a PS5 Pro would be bad. Like, it wouldn't be bad. It's, having options is good. I mean, a PS5 Pro would only do good things for games, right? But there's a difference between that and the idea that is it necessary? Is this something that Sony should even bother, investing in right now and putting resources into and focusing on? I think that's really what the conversation pertains to, because like I said, dude, like a lot of people right now, I would bet you that most of the people, I promise you, because this is how this always works, most of the people complaining about a PS5 Pro, if in 2 years Sony announces a PS5 Pro, they're probably going to be the first in line to buy it. Because I've seen it happen time and time again. People change their minds, and that's normal. And people also, it's easy to dismiss a PS5 Pro right now because it's like, we haven't even had our PS5s for 2 years. We don't need who would buy a Pro right now? But that's the thing. Well, what about 2.5 years from now? What about when Sony reveals it and they make a big grand show about it? What about the games that Sony shows off running on this PS5 Pro? You see what I'm saying? It's like, these are all the things. Just like, I'm telling you, I could be mistaken about this, but I'm pretty sure if you go back to when the PS4 Pro was rumored, remember it was PlayStation Neo? There were just as many people who were like, this is garbage. We don't need this. This is stupid. This is a mistake. And it's like, look at how it played out. People loved it. And it was a success for Sony and Microsoft. So I don't think it's anybody saying it. I mean, you might see some people saying it's bad, but it's to me, the interesting conversation is whether or not it would be worth it. That's the conversation that I'm interested in having. By the way, guys, as I'm running through these super chats, do me a favor. We have over 1,000 people hanging out here with me, which is awesome. Thank you guys so much for, watching the stream. Please hit that like button for me. to help the stream out. Nathan Drake, thank you. You're saying, my worry for God of War is Game of the Year awards. I feel Elden Ring is automatically the winner at the moment, but Sony may want to release God of War in December to probably win Game of the Year 2023. I hope not, dude. I mean, look, I know that Sony does care about that stuff. Like, there's no doubt that Sony cares about their image. They care about, winning Game of the Year. They care about having that prestige. But I'm just going to say this. I sincerely, genuinely hope that that has no impact on when Sony decides to release their games. Because the reality is, I think I speak for pretty much all other PlayStation fans, or most PlayStation fans, I do not care who wins Game of the Year. I want to play God of War. If God of War is finished, polished, and ready to go, please, by all means, release it. I'm ready to pay for this game, play it, and enjoy every moment of it. Game of the Year awards are not what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about picking this game up. You know what I mean? And I just hope that Sony understands that. I'm sure they do. It would be very bizarre to me if Sony was like, we're going to release this game later because we want it to win Game of the Year. I mean, let's face it, man. God of War Ragnarok will very likely be in the running for Game of the Year. I mean, I know everybody's going to be like, oh man, Elden Ring automatically wins. Let me remind everybody. Which game won Game of the Year 2018? Which game, no, more importantly, which game was supposed to win Game of the Year in 2018? Red Dead Redemption 2. I remember that battle between Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War, and that's kind of like what we might end up seeing with God of War Ragnarok and Elden Ring, where everybody was saying, dude, Red Dead Redemption 2 is taking it home. Easy win, right? Easy Game of the Year win. And no, God of War beat it out. And a lot of people were shocked. Rightly so. I mean, because imagine what kind of game you got to be to beat Red Dead Redemption 2 for Game of the Year. That was the last single-player experience Rockstar released. That's crazy. I mean, that's literally like, when you think about Kratos taking down gods, that's like literally the equivalent of it, right? God of War beating out Red Dead Redemption 2 for Game of the Year. So this is why, like, I will tell you this, I have more confidence that God of War Ragnarok will be a Game of the Year experience, just like Elden Ring is. I know that there are people who, and PlayStation fans, some PlayStation fans are guilty of this as well. So I don't want to make it sound like PlayStation fans don't do this, because we do sometimes. But a lot of Soulsborne fans, a lot of Elden Ring fans, they get a little bit arrogant. Where it's like, you kidding me? Obviously, Elden Ring won Game of the Year. It like reminds me of the football players who celebrate just a couple yards before actually being in the end zone, and then some shit happens where they fumble the ball, or they like drop the ball before, to spike it before they actually get into the end zone, and then they find out, dude, you didn't score, man. And I feel like it's one of those situations where it's like, Elden Ring is absolutely a Game of the Year contender, and I do agree that it's likely it will win Game of the Year. But we haven't played Ragnarok yet. And I just need to stress that to people. It's like, we don't know. We have no idea what Ragnarok is going to offer, what it's going to be, how it's going to try to one-up what God of War 2018 was, right? I just think that that's worth keeping in mind. Where, like, the year's not over yet. It's not over. But putting aside Game of the Year, I really don't care. Like, I just want to play God of War Ragnarok. You know what I mean? I think Game of the Year conversations are just fun for the sake of talking about competition and these different games going up against one another. But, oh man, these bots in my chat, man. Mods, please take care of that. I'm going to need you guys to be on top of that, especially now that my chat is on screen now. Ridiculous, man. So, okay, hold on. This is, I'll take care of it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Space Gambler Jr. Yeah, just be on the lookout for that. Because, geez. But yeah, getting back to the conversation, I don't care about game of the year to that degree. Like I really don't care about it at all, honestly. I know Sony does, but I want to believe that it doesn't matter that much to Sony. Like if Santa Monica says we're ready to go in September, I like it would just be so dumb to think that somebody at Sony is like, well, you know, are you guys feeling confident enough that it could beat Elden Ring for game of the year? And it's like, what? Who cares? Like, we have a great game. Let's release it. You see what I'm saying? Like, it would be pretty ridiculous if Sony was like that. You know what I mean? And I don't think they are. I think they are hopeful, but I don't think they'll let it get in the way of when they're going to release their games. So we'll see. We'll see, Nathan Drake. Okay, Kapapa, thank you for the 10, buddy. You're saying, I definitely want a PS5 Pro because I have tested the 120 hertz and VRR in Destiny and Ratchet and Clank, and it is a literal game changer. I want games at 4K 120. Well, I mean that's the thing. You could imagine that having a PS5 Pro would be able to increase the amount of games that could achieve 4K 120, but another aspect to that is it 120 hertz TVs or TVs that are capable of running games at like 4K 120. It's a similar situation with 8K. Not as bad because I think more people do have TVs that can run games at 4K 120, but just like 8K is not widely adopted and is nowhere near being widely adopted. I think like it's the same thing with most people with TVs, and that's why like a lot of people I think made a bigger deal out of Sony releasing VRR. Like, yeah, it took them a while, but a lot of people made it sound like, oh my God, Xbox has this feature. It's like, what percentage of people actually are utilizing that feature or have screens that are capable of taking advantage of it? And you probably find it's a really, really small percentage. And the same is true for probably for PlayStation. But more TVs are going to begin to offer this, so maybe that isn't a really significant angle that Sony could take, with the PS5 Pro in the coming years. That would make sense because a lot of people do like it, and yeah, that would be cool if that became maybe not the new standard, but more prevalent than it is now. Pragmatic Hat, you're saying completely agree. PlayStation 6 sooner. Jim Ryan said from the start they want the PS5 gen to last about 7 years. Oh, that's true, actually. He did say that, I think. And they had probably taken Pro into account by then. Yeah, I mean, dude, to me, like the biggest thing that Digital Foundry pointed out that, I mean, we all kind of point this out, like, did next gen even start yet? I mean, really, though, like, has it really started yet? I'm saying this because it's like when you look at just how many cross-gen games we're still getting, how many games are still being developed with cross-gen in mind, and how few games have even attempted to take advantage. I mean, I don't even think the Xbox Series X has a single game that has been just exclusive to that console or tried to take advantage of full advantage of that power. I could be wrong, but I know with the PS5, we get games like Demon's Souls and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and I'm sure a few others that I'm failing to mention, but the point is it's a very small pool of games. You know what I mean? And it just seems like it's going to take the next year or two, probably 3, before we really start to see like, okay, what can these talented development teams do with this power that is in this console? Because we still think about Mark Cerny and his deep dive onto the road to PlayStation 5, and how it really does just seem like 95% of developers are not even close to being able to tap into most of the things that he said would be possible with this hardware, And so even from Sony's first party, we're still seeing the early phases of that, For as awesome as a game like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is, Insomniac went on record saying they're just scratching the surface. So, if you take into account that this generation will last 7, maybe 8 years at most, and we're already almost 2 years into it, yeah, I think we're probably set, all things considered, Clammy True Colors, you're saying another point Rich made is the PS4's hardware was pretty conservative, and the X1 was a bit underpowered, But this time around, the GPUs inside these next-gen consoles are quite great, as premium as RTX 2080 Ti Super. Yeah, and that is another really important aspect to consider when we have this conversation, where it's like, when you look at where the PS4 was, the internals of the PS4, the hardware, and the Xbox One at their launch in 2013, they were already kind of underpowered. They were already, like, they were far from cutting edge. To whereas I feel like when we talked about the buildup, like, one of the things that I remember talking about frequently with both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X is people were really excited at how cutting edge these consoles seem to be, And yeah, I mean, dude, the biggest selling point of the PS5 was the SSD combined with the architecture and the IO throughput and the customizations, and how we, like, again, Mark Cerny said it over and over again, and I said it over and over again, and developers said it over and over again, that this hardware, the way it's built, the way it's customized, should eventually allow developers to do things that have never been achieved before. So something tells me we're still quite a ways away from seeing that happen. William, thank you for that, Clammy True Colors. William, you're saying make sure you play the Yuffie DLC after you finish Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, I probably will. I mean, it's part of the whole package with Final Fantasy VII Remake integrate. So, how long is that? I mean, so how long on average is Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then how long is the Yuffie DLC? Curious, because I'm assuming it's a pretty long game. Matt York, member for 5 months. Greatness awaits. Thank you for your support, buddy. You're saying, don't think a PS5 Pro is a bad idea. Full ray tracing at 4K, 60 FPS with no compromises would be nice. Also could push the PSVR 2 even further, no downside. That is true. I think a Pro console could benefit VR2. I see a lot of you guys saying 30 to 40, maybe 50 hours, depends on how you play. Oh, that's actually a little bit shorter than I was expecting. Not in a bad way. Like, that's actually good. I was like a little bit nervous. Like, is this going to be like an 80-hour game? So, all right, here's the next question. 2 questions. How difficult is it to platinum? And how long does it take roughly to platinum it? I'm more interested in the difficulty of it rather than the time factor. But yeah, Matt York, I think you do bring up a good point. I mean, we haven't talked about PSVR 2 when it comes to that. Just waiting to see. 80-hour platinum. Okay. That actually is pretty long. You have to beat it twice. Somebody says 100 hours to platinum. Interesting. You need to play on hard mode. You're saying that the platinum is not easy. All right, well, I'll just play a normal playthrough then, my first time, and if I feel inclined, maybe I'll try to platinum it. Maybe. I'll have to see. So thank you for that, Matt. Roshdom V2, you're saying a PS5 Pro will work perfectly because us hardcore will buy them and sell the OG PS5, which puts more used stock on the market that the casuals can buy. There you go, Roshdom. That's actually a really good way of looking at it. Anybody who's upset at the notion of a PS5 Pro because they can't get a PS5 shouldn't be upset, because it'll help make it so there's more PS5s on the market, right? Yeah, that's an interesting thought. It's an interesting thought. Anthony Perez, you're saying, FYI, this was a hang-up for a friend. The anime grunts in Final Fantasy VII Remake are off-putting at first, but they go away as it goes. There's really great acting. Anime grunts, fine. I'm used to, with any Sony game, truly, there just being a lot of excess dialogue coming from the main character for reasons, because that's just kind of what they do. So I'm sure I'll talk all about it when I experience it. Pragmatic Hat, you're saying a battle for the ages. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm really interested to see what the conversation surrounding God of War Ragnarok is like when this game launches, because, man, I think we can all agree that Ragnarok has a high bar to clear. It really does. I mean, God of War 2018 set the bar so ridiculously high Um, I think it's totally okay. I think it's totally okay if Ragnarok doesn't, clear that bar because of how high it is. But could you imagine if it did? I mean, it'll be crazy, man. It'll be crazy. Um, Let me see. We have Young G. You're saying God of War 2018 had 3 gods we fought. Ragnarok could have more than double that. The more major gods will appear in Ragnarok. This game has a chance for Game of the Year. Yet, that's the thing, dude, is I feel like, guys, you tell me if I'm alone in this. I feel like the hype for God of War Ragnarok just like isn't there yet. Like, I think people, not everybody, because there are definitely fans that are excited, people like us, but I feel like the general gaming populace is really sleeping on Ragnarok right now. And I can't say I blame them because Sony and Santa Monica, they've been very quiet. It's not like they've been out here marketing the game like crazy, but that's a good point that you bring up, Young G. I mean, we have no idea what's going to go down in this game, man. Some of the craziest stuff we've ever seen in any game, let alone a God of War game, could be about to go down, and we might have no clue what we're in store for. So, and I don't want to overhype the game, but that's a good point to bring up, man, because you're right. This is where they're going to end the Norse section of the of God of War. This is where they're going to end with the Norse mythology here. So, yeah, they're going to have to go big. I mean, I really do wonder what the battle between Thor and Kratos is going to be like. So thank you for that. Pragmatic Hat again, you're saying whoever wins Game of the Year, it'll be so fun watching them battle it out. Let's at least give the Game Awards judges a good conversation. Yeah, and I agree. That's the thing, is like there's nothing worse than a year where there's just like like the Game of the Year awards are just kind of boring because the games that are there are just like, there was really nothing like superb this year, or something that really stood out. And I think this year will be different. Josh, you're saying Horizon Forbidden West looking crazy now. I hear they are doing VRR now. As a person with a capable OLED, that is a game changer for me. VRR has been huge so far. Yeah, dude, I've been hearing like really, really, really good things about Horizon Forbidden West. The only reason I haven't tried it myself yet is because I uninstalled the game, which I probably shouldn't have done. But I uninstalled it because I wasn't expecting them to be bringing out a massive patch like this, at least not so soon. So I am going to have to reinstall it and check it out for myself. But I've been looking at screenshots. I've been watching some comparisons, and I've been hearing what people are saying. And apparently, Guerrilla Games, they are not playing around. They took the criticism to performance mode to heart, and now they're going out of their way to do VRR. So you love to see it, man. You love to see it. Pragmatic Hat, you're saying, just passed my international A license final exam listening to the podcast. Thanks, MBG. Super license. Here I come. Well, that's awesome, Pragmatic Hat. I'm happy to hear that. I appreciate the super chats. I appreciate the enthusiasm, and I always appreciate your support. I'm glad I can provide a little bit of, hopefully, interesting conversation, some entertainment while you're in the process of doing that. So congratulations, Pragmatic Cat. And we have Anthony Perez saying, a tip not outlined in Final Fantasy VII, but you can map abilities to L1 hotkeys so you don't have to bring up the menu to do actions and make it more action-based. Okay, I'll try to keep that in mind. Because again, I don't even know what to expect with the combat, but you're saying I can map abilities to L1 hotkeys. All right. I appreciate it. I'm getting tips on the game before I even play it. I'll have to try to remember them. I'm sure at some point if I get frustrated, I'll be like, oh, Anthony Perez sent me that super chat. Pragmatic Hat, you're saying, LOL, Takuma Miyazano just called me Pragmatic Hat-san. Well, I appreciate you letting me know this in all the super chats, Pragmatic Hat. All right. So we kind of bounced all over the place with the topics here. So what I want to talk about is, I have a few more super chats to go through before we move on here. Not that I'm complaining. Thank you, guys. William Aguilar, thank you for the 20, my friend. You're saying play Final Fantasy VII at normal difficulty in the first play, not hard. It takes takes away mechanics, 45 hours if you do all the side quests. You upgrade your starting weapon to be better than the new weapons in endgame. Fun board game, mini game in Yuffie. I always struggle with like these mini board games and stuff. They stress me out because I'm playing a game within a game, and it's like I'm trying to learn the game, but now I got to learn another game within the game I'm trying to learn. But I'll keep this in mind, William. That's how I was planning on playing it the first time. I plan on just kind of playing normal difficulty, just a completely not casual, but I guess just regular playthrough the way it's kind of intended, just at the base mode. And then, and then if I want, like you said, like people were telling me, in order to platinum it, you have to beat it twice on hard, or once normal and once on hard. And then maybe I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, you guys have been, I hope the game lives up to expectations, because you guys have been hyping Final Fantasy VII Remake for a long time. And I'm not a Final Fantasy guy either, so this game's really going to have to win me over. We'll see. But thank you for that, William. Always Busy, you're saying the Digital Foundry video was illogical. It was based on 2022 issues and not a theoretical 2024/25 4 nanometer or 3 nanometer GPU with architectural improvements that it would bring. That is a good point, Always Busy. I guess I didn't really consider that when I listened to that Digital Foundry video, where it's like, we can only assume that things are going to change pretty dramatically in the next 2 to 3 years. And that's what I've always said about a PS5 Pro, not to keep going on about the Pro model, but I've always said that, like, it's easy right now, and it will be easy for probably the next year, to just laugh at the idea of a Pro. But what about 3 years from now? What about 2.5 years from now? So I think that is a good point, Always Busy, and maybe something we do need to keep in mind when we talk about that video. So thank you for that. Josh Z, you're saying people are over-exaggerating the difficulty of Final Fantasy VII Remake Platinum. It's more time-consuming than difficult. I spent about 140 hours on it. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that many times, where the difficulty usually lies in the amount of time required to kind of tackle it. So thank you for letting me know that, Josh. I'll keep that in mind as well. So let me see here. Let me go back to my topics list. We talked, I think we talked more than enough about the Pro. So, all right, let's talk about the state of play that happened, guys. Because there are some conversations surrounding the state of play, and everything that you got from me with my reactions, that was just me in the moment, just off the cuff. I mean, that's what it is. It's a live reaction, but we've had time to kind of digest this state of play, to process it. And here's something I want to ask you guys. Okay? Here's a question I have for you guys. And I don't know that anybody will necessarily be able to answer it, because the answer will come in time. But since this state of play was so good, are our collective expectations for state of play going forward now altered? Are they now inherently higher? The next time Sony announces a regular state of play, are people going to go into it expecting it to be as good or close to what we just got? I feel like the answer to that is maybe. I say this because I feel that there are going to be some people who are going to be like, yo, state of play, remember the last one we got? Remember how good the last one was? Sony's going to do it again. And then it's going to be like literally just not that at all. It's just going to be very small, very tame, smaller game reveals. That was something I considered, because I was like, so many people are saying they went into this with such low expectations, and they were so surprised at just how good it was. They were not anticipating it was going to be that good. Chris B, you're saying, I figure 3 years from now we'll get a PlayStation 6. Console generations used to be 5 years or so. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense too. I think that Sony may be more open to doing that as well, when you consider that, I don't know, the PlayStation 6 will probably be very close to the PS5 in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? To where cross-gen probably won't. I don't know. Sony's going to have their work cut out for them when it comes to, as well as Microsoft, when it comes to console generations that are coming up, because it's getting harder and harder for them to really allow them to stand out, Brandon Chad Perez, Oh, something else real quick before I read the super chat. Somebody had I forget who was Pragmatic Cat. I don't know. Somebody mentioned a PS5 Pro controller or like a Pro DualSense. Now that's something Sony should look into, I think, because the DualSense is so good. Being able to like have a custom controller with those features, I think that's something Sony should be looking into. Brandon Chad Perez, thank you, buddy. You're saying you might be a bit confused as you reach the end. Remake builds on the original game's um, compilation timeline. It isn't a remake in the proper sense, but it's still a must play for sure. Yeah, so that is something I am going to have to keep in mind with this as well, is that it is just part one, right? Like I'm assuming I have to like keep in mind I'm probably not going to have all the answers, and I know that because it's just part one, and I get what you're saying about the remake side of things. Like they I think if I'm correct about this, they had to change some things for sure, but I think most people really liked the changes that they implemented. But I will keep this in mind when playing it. I'm definitely not going to go play the original, but when I've finished the game, maybe I'll go like check out a breakdown of the original story, or maybe not. Actually, no, I'm probably not going to do that because I don't want the entire story spoiled for me. I want to just experience remake part one and then be excited for remake part two when they announce it. And then I'm assuming there'll be a part three. I don't know how many parts are there going to be. Did they say? Anyway, getting back to the state of play, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that people are saying, because I think there's some weird stuff going on, guys. It seems to me that 98% of people, and I'm emphasizing the high 90% here. I'm going to say like 97% of people really enjoyed this state of play. I think 97% of people tuned into this state of play and they were like, that was really good. And that was thoroughly enjoyable. And that was, I think a lot of people were saying that was like the best state of play ever. But there is that 3%. And I want to make this clear because it's pretty obvious at this point. That 3%, unfortunately, because of the nature of my YouTube channel and what we do here, they unfortunately flock to this channel. Because I was looking at some of the responses in the comments on my stream, and oh man, it's sad, dude. It is very sad to me that we are at a point where the overwhelming majority of people can be just like, yo, this is great. This was really good. And then there's just like this 3% where they gotta come in, man, and they gotta be as loud as they can possibly be. We're like, yo, that was a great state of play for PC and Xbox players. And I just have to rant a little bit about this. I'm not gonna rant hard about it, but I have to rant about it just a little bit because I want to set the record straight. Okay? I want to set the record straight. Okay, this is getting out of hand right now. Thank you, Space Gambler Jr. Thank you. You are on top of it. I know I can rely on you with this. I appreciate it. It's like, why does this keep happening? Anyway, I know I see what you're saying. Don't focus on the extremists. You're right. And I'm not trying to give it any more oxygen than it needs, because it doesn't need any. But this is more about, I just want to set the record straight, because I have a platform here and I want to use it for good. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So as I said, there's a group of people, maybe about 3% of people, where the thing that they wanted to focus on and the thing that they wanted to hone in on, and they wanted to like vocalize it. Like, I want everybody to know that PlayStation fans, like core PlayStation fans, are shook right now. That they're upset, they're beaten down, they're depressed. I saw people making videos on YouTube, but also on Twitter of this stuff. And it's like they're putting all of this energy into making these claims and saying these things, but literally none of it, it's like it's made up. It's a made up fantasy in their heads that it's like if enough of them get together, just again, it's a small group of people. It's like 3% of people, but it's like if enough of them get together and they all kind of turn to each other and say, this is a thing, right? Yeah, it's a thing. This is what it's like. Yeah, it's this delusional state of thinking, and they just scream about it. I mean, what I'm essentially describing is most of the internet, unfortunately, where what is reality anymore? But in this particular instance, I noticed it, and it's just so weird because I'm literally not sure what they're talking about. I'm beginning to think like, surely this all has to just be for entertainment value, right? That's what it has to be, because I'm like, everybody was happy, man. Like, everybody was excited and enjoyed what was shown off. Like, and it's just this crazy thing where it's like, people, these 3%, these extremists, they're attempting to create a false narrative. And this false narrative states that because this state of play showed multiple multi-platform games, because Spider-Man was announced for PC, and because there was very little focus on anything exclusive, or maybe no focus on exclusivity, that means PlayStation fans didn't enjoy it and that it was a bad state of play. And this is why I'm just here to set the record straight. Again, I'm not attempting to speak for every PlayStation fan, but I do feel confident that I am speaking for the overwhelming majority of PlayStation fans when I say that state of play was awesome, and there was nothing there that was shown that left PlayStation fans feeling bad. Even I've seen some of the most passionate PlayStation fans expressing how they're actually happy that Spider-Man's going to PC. And that's the thing, is like this small 3% of people keep attempting to weaponize something that they can no longer weaponize. Where it's like, okay, yeah, when Sony first announced that some games were going to PC, yeah, some PlayStation fans were not happy about it. Some PlayStation fans, unfortunately, had very vocal meltdowns, trying to flush their PS5s down the toilet or something like weird like that. Again, I'm not even sure that they were ever really PlayStation fans, if that's what they're doing. But at first, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe like when Horizon or whatever I think Horizon was the first game announced. It was like, oh man, what's happening? This is different. This is new. But we're like multiple games in. You see what I'm saying? Like, is anybody, I'm sincerely asking, is anybody even remotely surprised or caught off guard that Sony is releasing Spider-Man on PC? Because, like, that's what I'm trying to say, is like literally no one's surprised. No one. Not a single soul. Like, these people that they're making things up and they're trying to create a false narrative. 99% of people that I've seen leaving comments or talking about it, they're all saying the same thing, myself included, which is, I hope PC players enjoy it. The game's amazing. It sold 33 million copies on PS5 and PS4. I think PlayStation fans got their fill. And here's the big kicker of it all. You ready? This is the big one. Now comes in the wave of, well, I guess you don't need a PlayStation. And what's so weird to me about this is that, well, first of all, if you're an Xbox fan saying that, you also just said, I guess you don't need an Xbox. But even if you're not an Xbox owner, you ready? You ready? You guys ready? Who cares? Who cares? If you don't want a PlayStation, don't buy a PlayStation. Isn't that just mind-blowing logic? I laugh because I'm like, these guys are trying so hard, man. It's cringe. It's really cringe. Like, just stop. No one cares. Literally no one cares. As far as I'm concerned, that state of play was a win for everybody. If you're an Xbox fan, I mean, you're celebrating the fact that RE4 Remake and Street Fighter 6 are not exclusive. And that's good, because I'm sure Xbox fans want to play those games. So there you go. You have something to feel good about. These game announcements were just as much for Xbox players as they were for PlayStation. I don't understand this mentality that, well, PlayStation fanboy, Resident Evil 4 Remake isn't exclusive. So I guess you're going to enjoy it less now on your PS5. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know what reality you're living in, but I don't think any PlayStation fan is looking at it that way. I know I'm not. You know what I mean? And it's just, I understand that PlayStation fans, I'm not trying to make it sound like we haven't said things in the past, and some fans haven't behaved a certain way in the past. But that's the thing. It's like, we're talking about like stuff that happened years ago. Did you see the tweet that everybody was talking about where Insomniac Games in 2017, they said, I think it was talking about Spider-Man 2018, and they said it's a Sony-owned game. It'll never release on PC or anywhere else. And they were getting dunked on just left, right, up, down, and center. And it's kind of understandable why they would. But this is where I'm like, do you guys not see how this is what we call change? Isn't that just a mind-blowing concept for some people to grasp? It's called change. It turns out that this is something that happens all the time. It turns out that the Sony of 2017 is not the same Sony of 2022. And just like the Sony of 2022 will not be the same Sony that we see in 2025. And this is just where I think people, I understand the stuff that they feel the need to hang on to. And I guess if there's a bigger point that I'm trying to make with this little rant that I'm going on here, it's that, take it from me, I used to kind of hold on to these things and be like, oh, this is how it's going to be. I know what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure. Okay. Like, I'm pretty sure. I don't know anything, and I'm not sure of anything. When it comes to PlayStation, when it comes to Xbox, Nintendo, Steam, Valve, the entire industry, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm done trying to assume that I know what's going to happen. And I'm just encouraging everybody where it's like, that state of play was good for PlayStation fans, was good for Xbox fans. I mean, I feel like Nintendo fans are probably the only ones who maybe are left out of this. But it was good for PlayStation fans, Xbox fans, PC players, PS4 players. And this is where I'm just like, what kind of person do you got to be? Where it's like, after you see an awesome show like that, an awesome state of play, you got to come out and be like, yo, PlayStation fans crying right now. I'm like, dude, you're not paying attention. Like, you're not involved in this conversation if that's actually what you think. You're in your own little made up world right now, because no PlayStation fans are upset. And it's funny because like people were pointing out, they're like, yo, your face changed. You could see something change in your face when they announced Spider-Man for PC. I don't know how closely people were paying attention to my live stream. It's because I explained to people, I thought what I was looking at was Spider-Man for PSVR 2. And when I realized, oh, wait, this is just Spider-Man 2018 again, or Spider-Man Remastered, I was like, oh, okay. And so I was disappointed because I thought what I was looking at was for PSVR 2. I thought it was a new game announcement, which was pretty funny. Like, I was like, oh, damn, I really thought like we're about to get Spider-Man on PSVR. I'm sure that'll come in the future. I mean, that'll probably make people pretty sick, but I just had to go on, I had to go on this little mini rant here just a little bit, because I think when it comes to Sony State of Play, it was awesome. And I read the blog post, and I know most of you did, where it's like, they said it's going to be third-party games and PlayStation VR 2. And that's exactly what it was. You know, like, I wasn't going in expecting like this is where Sony's going to show their first party stuff, the stuff that PS5 owners are going to get, right? Like, no, The only thing I expected to see that was going to be exclusive, which it was, is the PSVR 2 games. And this is what's weird to me, is that everything we saw, well, not everything, but like a game like Horizon Call of the Mountain, right? Like, that's going to be exclusive to PlayStation VR 2. So in a way, it's like we still actually did get some stuff, at least that, which was exclusive for PSVR 2. So it's like these arguments that these dudes are trying to make up, like they don't work. They don't work and they don't hold weight. And I understand that PlayStation fans have kind of built this reputation, like the fanboys, where it's like they're upset that they're losing their exclusives or that Sony's embracing PC. And it's just like, I'm here to tell you guys, for me, I'm just speaking for me, I don't care anymore. Like, I just literally don't care. I was nervous at the direction that Microsoft was going in back in 2017, mainly with Game Pass, not so much games going to PC, because it was never done before. And it kind of, at the time, it looked like, is Microsoft trying to kill the console right now? And we didn't know. Literally, even Microsoft didn't know. You think Microsoft knew what was going to happen to their console sales by introducing Game Pass on PC, putting their games on PC? And this is where I will give Microsoft the credit they are due. And that credit is they were the ones, Microsoft was the one to prove that it turns out you can put your games on PC and millions of people will still buy your console. It turns out that most people don't care. Like, they just don't care. People will go buy a console if that's how they want to play their games. But we do have to understand that we can't get ahead of ourselves. People are now talking about Sony. Sony's doing day and date on PC. They're literally not, but okay. I guess we can just talk about them like they are, right? I mean, we can talk about Sony like they're releasing their games day and date, but they're literally not. And this is where people just, they go off into all of these extreme directions. And I have been guilty of this in the past. I'm not trying to play innocent here, but I have changed and I am seeing things differently now, where it's like, good on Xbox, man. Xbox came out and they got beaten to a pulp when they said, we're putting our games on PC. They got beaten to a pulp. And let's be honest. We're talking facts right now. A good portion of the PlayStation fan base said, you're going to kill the console. What's the point of owning an Xbox? No one's going to buy an Xbox. We all said this. And it turns out that millions of people are buying. They're buying Xbox Series X's and S's, even with all of these games launching on the PC. So Xbox was the trailblazer here, and I got to give them that credit, where it's like, they did it, and it seems like everything's okay. And now Sony is doing it to a degree, not in the same way. Sony's being more strategic about it. They're not just doing day and date for all of their games or anything like that, but Sony is doing it. And Sony's never done anything like this before. And it's like, yeah, it turns out, guys, it's totally cool. It's totally okay. PC players are going to be able to enjoy Spider-Man. And that's why I kind of laugh in the face of people who come out and are like, well, I guess there's no point in owning a PS5. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to apologize to all the Xbox fans. I'm sure I said it. I'm going to say this apology simply because I'm sure I said it at one point or another. I'm sure I was also saying there's no point in buying an Xbox now that their games are on PC. So I will apologize that, you know what? My bad. I was wrong. It turns out that it's totally fine. And so I think we can all kind of live in this harmonious balance now, where it's like, you know what? Sony's still going to have exclusive games where they feel it necessary, right? Like, for example, God of War Ragnarok. I don't think God of War Ragnarok is going to release on PC anytime soon, but I'm pretty sure it's going to release on PC at some point. Maybe like, I don't know, a couple years after it's been out. And I think that that's just the strategy that Sony is implementing right now. And, you know, people are bringing up these things. It's like, oh, no point in owning a PS5 anymore or consoles. Like, you know what? Yeah, if you want to play on PC, man, go ahead, enjoy it, enjoy yourself, right? Like, enjoy Spider-Man on PC. And that's the thing I realized about myself is that like the more games I see going to PC, the more PlayStation games I see going to PC, people have mentioned, they're like, dude, are you going to go play on PC? Like, do you want to go play on PC? And it just made me kind of realize like, I don't. And that's the thing is like, I'm actual proof that like, it turns out some of these games can go to PC, these better versions, right? Like the better PC versions, but it doesn't matter to me because I'm totally happy on PlayStation 5. I like playing on the console. And I know that there's the whole PC master race thing and consoles are not worth it or they're inferior. It's like, but yeah, that's the thing. Like they're usually cheaper. They're usually less cumbersome. They're usually a lot easier to navigate. You know what I mean? Like these are just the same pros and cons that have always existed. And it's weird because I said a couple of weeks back, guys, we talk about Sony's games as a service. I feel like people didn't actually pay attention to what I said. This is what I said. I said, don't be surprised if some of Sony's live service games, like free-to-play live service games, whatever ones might be free-to-play, do not be surprised if they release on Xbox as well. And I know that sounds insane to people, but I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, expect literally anything at this point. There are no more rules here. This is about business. This is about profitability. I'm not saying that means Sony's just going to throw things to the wind. They're not going to do that, but I'm just saying you never know. You never know. And I've actually learned this the hard way, where again, I've made many assumptions. I've doubled down on things that I thought, nope, not going to happen, or that's not a possibility. And it just turns out, actually, it very much is. It's literally happening now. Apologies if my son's in the other room again. I don't know if my mic's picking it up. I think he just woke up from his nap, and he's usually very cranky, probably from my ranting. So sorry if you guys hear any of that coming through the mic. But I have some of these super chats I have to get through. Let me see here. Okay, I got quite a few super chats that I missed. See, this is the thing. This is the way they change the super chats, how they look on the screen here. Okay, here we go. Nathan Drake, thank you for the 5, my friend. You're saying SOP was good, better than usual, although we should remember that it was a third party and isn't entirely indicative of what Sony is doing. No, not at all, dude. That's the thing is like, I think it was Zubitech on Twitter. I don't know how many of you follow Zubitech, but he follows all this place. You know, he breaks down all this PlayStation stuff. And, you know, he was saying that 85% of PlayStation Studios games still remain unannounced. Like 85% of PlayStation Studios have yet to announce what they're working on. And that is like mind blowing. That's actually like a real statistic. So you're absolutely right when you say that you say it isn't entirely indicative of what Sony's doing. Dude, it's not even remotely close to what, we have no clue still. For as good as that state of play was, we still know so little about what PlayStation Studios is actually doing. And I think that's exciting. The 77, thank you. You're saying you were surprised PlayStation hardware is done. # Steam Deck. Thank you for that, the 77. A bit of post-nasal drip as always. Alex Mercer, the prototype, you're saying, I'm a PlayStation fan, and I'm happy that they can enjoy Spider-Man. Hell, I hope Xbox fans can emulate it because it's a good game I think everyone should enjoy and play. And that's the thing is like, I'm not saying the future of PlayStation is complete multi-platform. People have to understand that there is a strategy behind what Sony is doing. Yes, it is about profitability. Yes, it is about business. But part of that is there's strategy involved with it. The reason why it was so easy for Microsoft to just say, we're doing day and date with all of our games on PC just in one fell swoop, was because it was part of their bigger picture strategy. That's not part of Sony's bigger picture strategy, not now anyway. Right now, Sony's strategy is, we have sequels to these games that are coming out. We have hardware that we hope to sell. Sony, I know that, and I'm just going to be candid right now. I know that PC players have this mentality that because Sony's putting their games on PC, that they're like the priority. And I don't know how many PC players have that mentality. And I'm not saying this in a rude way. It's just the truth. PC players are absolutely not the priority when it comes to PlayStation. They're extra money. That's what they are. And I say this because it's like, look, Sony's going to be giving you extra bells and whistles because it's a PC game, but these are games that are not, like they're not being created right now for PC exactly. What I mean by that is a game like Spider-Man 2, for example, Sony isn't like, oh, how many copies of this can we sell on PC? That's not what Sony's thinking right now. What Sony's thinking is Spider-Man 2 is going to sell millions of PS5 units. And once Spider-Man 2 does its work that it needs to do for PS5 and the heavy lifting for PS5 and for PlayStation fans and everybody gets their fill, then we're going to sell a couple more million units potentially on PC, maybe a couple years later. And that strategy could change. That could change. But right now, PC is not the priority. It's just, it's an avenue. It's a source of revenue. And this is where I think, like, I don't know, man. It all comes down to arrogance. I'm guilty of it. A lot of people are guilty of it, where it's like, as long as we keep in mind that Sony's end goal is to move hardware units, keep their core PlayStation fan base intact. If you guys recall, the way Jim Ryan talked about, and also Herman Holst, anytime they would do their interviews and they would answer questions about PC, did you ever notice how they talked about it? How they're like, well, we're always going to do things for the PlayStation core fan base and the PlayStation fans, and they're the priority. And I remember Jim Ryan even talked about it, how like, oh yeah, our fan base seemed to be okay with us releasing some games on PC. Clearly, Sony was scared, man. Like, they were nervous of like, yo, how is our fan base going to react when we do this? And you can't blame them. We have gotten pretty crazy in the past, right? About exclusives, and some people still are. But I think that PlayStation players and just gamers in general are becoming more open to this idea of like, things are going to not stay exclusive forever. And what you may end up getting, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. It's just a real possibility. Xbox, PlayStation, anywhere else you play, it may be a situation, except maybe for Nintendo, where you're going to get first dibs. You're going to get first access to it. Maybe the first year, maybe the first 2 years. And it's like, people tried to throw Returnal in my face for like, how do you feel that Returnal is going to PlayStation Plus Extra or Premium or whatever, and it's going to end up going to PC just a year after it launched? It's like, I really don't care. Like, it turns out that I'm totally fine with that, because I wasn't going to ever wait for it. And, there are people who say, well, I'm just going to wait for these games. It's like, well, that's a viable option. Like, if you didn't play Spider-Man on PlayStation, if you didn't buy a PlayStation for Spider-Man, but you were always kind of interested in it, and you feel like it was worth waiting, all these years to finally get it, then that's an option. Nobody's saying you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I just think it's interesting to think about this, because people talk about these things in a way where it's like, haha, like that, Sony doesn't care anymore about the core PlayStation fan base. It's like, what? What are we even talking about? Let me see here. Always Busy, you're saying Sony made $115 million on PC from old games. They plan to make $300 million this year. That's up to $415 million towards developing more PS5 games, whether it's exclusive to PC or not too. Thank you. And that is another thing I do want to highlight here, that I think it's actually a critical component of this conversation. And that is, anytime Sony is making money off of their games, whether it's we're making money through selling these games on PC after we already made our money selling them on PS5 and PS4, but even with their upcoming live service games, the revenue they rake in from those live service games, all this money is going to be reinvested into making more games into their studios. And anybody who tells you otherwise literally doesn't know what they're talking about. And I say this with a bit of annoyance in my voice, because I've seen people talk as if like that's not what Sony's going to do. Sony's just going to take that money and it's going to be all profit for them. I'm like, that's literally not how this works. That's literally not how this works. Sony is a business, and anybody who knows a thing or two about business, you always have to keep reinvesting. You don't just stop investing. I mean, you can if you want, but you will stagnate, and it's not good. It only leads to bad things. So anytime Sony's making more money off of their games, whether it's, again, selling through PC or a live service, whatever it may be, DLC, microtransactions, the whole thing, it's going to be reinvested. A portion of it, anyway, is going to be reinvested into their games and into their studios. So, I mean, if all you need to do is look at the budget of games towards the end of the PS3 generation and at the beginning of the PS4 generation to where we are now with the budget of some of Sony's bigger games. There you go. Like, it's literal proof. It's right there. That's what we will continue to see with Sony and with every other major video game publisher, for that matter, in the AAA games business. Brandon Chad Perez, you're saying they're still salty about Insomniac's reply to the Xbox port. Never. Yeah, I mean, dude, you do have to wonder. You do have to wonder. I know it sounds crazy. What is stopping Sony from releasing Spider-Man 2018 on Xbox? I know that sounds insane, but it's like, it's Spider-Man, dude. I mean, realistically speaking, Sony is just one step away from doing that. I don't think they will, but I think the reason why they won't is because if you think about it, it does go against one of their goals, which is day one on Game Pass. Yeah, Sony's going to get that Game Pass bag. If you think about it, though, I think the reason why a game like Spider-Man will go to PC, but it won't go to Xbox, is because it's just crossing a certain line that Sony still cares about, where it's like, well, we want Xbox players or anybody who's thinking about buying an Xbox to instead buy a PlayStation. The PC players, and this is the reality, and I have to reiterate this. Again, I'm not trying to be rude to PC players. It's just the truth right now based off of what we're seeing. The PC players, not all of them, but most of them, or at least some of them, that are going to be playing Spider-Man, these are the people that never cared. You know what I mean? Like, they never cared about PlayStation. They don't care about PlayStation. And that's why, like, when you see these people, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube, where they're like celebrating, like, PC gets everything, it's like, you're not a PlayStation fan. Like, you're just not. Because if you were, you would have bought a PlayStation and played Spider-Man. You would have bought a PlayStation and played God of War. And I get that that's where this kind of mentality comes in, where it's like the tribalistic, and I'm not trying to make it tribalistic. It's just the truth, though. It's like, you guys are getting games that are years old at this point, because this is Sony's current strategy. It could change at any moment, but make no mistake, Sony is just trying to bring something to you because they know you're not budging. They know you're not moving. They know you're not going to buy a PlayStation, and they know you'll wait and you'll buy this at close to full price. It's just smart strategy, man. I got to give it to Sony. Like, it's a pretty smart strategy that I know people jump to the conclusion of day and date. I don't think it's worth jumping to any conclusions, but it's just worth keeping in mind that Sony, as of right now, has shown zero signs of wanting to do day and date. And I think people need to maybe think about this a little bit more critically, where it's like, maybe that's why. It's because Sony is only trying to bring certain things to certain groups of people and certain audiences after a certain amount of time, because they know that the people who were left waiting, the people who were buying Spider-Man 2018 in 2022, on PC, they're the ones that were possibly never going to buy a console. I will say this though, here's where things get a little bit more interesting. Before I move on to the next topic, they announced that Miles Morales is launching onto PC later this year. Now I think they said fall. That's it. That's why we can't assume anything right now, because that's a different strategy. That's where we're seeing Sony push a little bit harder, where it's like, hey, this game is going to be about 2 years old, and I'm going to say that there are PC players right now that eventually were planning to buy a PS5, but they're seeing a game like Miles Morales, and we're probably going to see Returnal. If Returnal comes to PC this year, that's like the soonest we'll have seen a game go to PC. That'll be like less than 2 years. I don't think there's a game, as far as I'm aware, that came to PC sooner than that. A PlayStation game. And so you can kind of see Sony is, they're pushing a little bit. I see somebody saying it's because of Spider-Man 2. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, that could also just be a strategy where it's like, we're going to align these PC releases with the console releases. So maybe we can bring the previous game to those who didn't care about it the first time it came out. And then maybe when they play it, it will excite them enough to want to come to us. That's definitely, that's the thing, is Sony doesn't really make these things clear. They don't actually say these things explicitly. We're left to kind of guess. But that's a viable strategy. And I'd say, if anything, that's actually probably the more likely strategy currently. But I think when Sony releases their live service games, I think we're going to have a much better idea of their bigger picture strategy. William, you're saying all games will eventually come to PC by port or unofficial emulation, but consider the value of your time. Do you really want to wait 1 to 4 plus years or one console gen later to play these games? Spider-Man was 2018. And William, that's exactly the point that I'm trying to make, where it's like, I think that when people say there's no point to own a PS5 or no point in owning a PS5 or a PlayStation console, I don't agree with that, because that, you're right. There is an argument to be made. Well, what about your time? Because Sony isn't doing day and date, as we said. If Sony did day and date, then I guess people could say that. And, it's like, I guess for you, there is no point in owning a PS5. Just go play on your PC, right? Like, but right now, I guess it's just the thing that confuses me about all of this is that the way, again, I feel like it's this 3% I talk about, the way they behave and they act, and this narrative they push, where it's like, what are you guys talking about? You know what I mean? Like I'm serious. Like, what are you talking about? Like, Sony is not doing anything that crazy. They're releasing like a 4-year-old game on PC. I mean, I guess I'm just saying this because some people are acting like Sony just announced at the State of Play, Spider-Man 2 is releasing on PC day and date. Now, if they did that, they'd be like, holy shit, yo, they're okay. They just broke down the wall completely. They just took the entire wall down. But that's not what's happening. They announced, again, even a game like Miles Morales. Again, that's where, to me, it's a little bit more interesting, where it'll be about 2 years. Still, 2 years is 2 years, And I don't know. I think Sony is aware that there are millions of people like me and you. We're not going to wait. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if the better version goes to PC. I'm not waiting. I'm playing I don't care if God of War Ragnarok releases on PC in 2023. Like holiday 2023 with all these bells and whistles. I do not care. I'm playing that game day one when it launches on my PlayStation 5. Period. End of discussion. Even if it launched day and date, I probably still would play on my PS5. I'm not a PC gamer. But I do understand why some people are I don't know. If you think about it, man, Sony's really jerking PlayStation, PC, not PlayStation, but PC players around. They are. Because if I was a PC player, I'd be very confused right now. I wouldn't know what to think about Sony's strategy. You know, you know what I mean? I'd be like, so are we getting like Forbidden West? Are we getting Ragnarok eventually? What about Spider-Man? Wolverine? Like, I saw people being like, yo, Wolverine's coming to PC. It's like, what, in like 2027? Like, I'm 2026? I don't, what's happening right now? You know what I mean? Like, where is this coming from? I guess you just have extremes on either end. You know, you have people who are like, Sony's never going to release anything on anything other than the PlayStation. It's never going to happen. And then you have people on the other end where it's like, Sony's doing day and date. They're going to release all their games in their service. And it's like, maybe we should just kind of be in the middle and in the present where we're not living in the past anymore. Sony is different. Sony operates differently. We're not living in the future where we're just assuming this is where Sony's going to end up. Let's just live like right here, right now, where it's like, this is what Sony's doing, and this is likely why they're doing it this way right now, you know? And I feel like that's just the best way to go about it. That is if you are either a PlayStation fan, where you like to play on PlayStation, or if you like to play on PC. I really think that's the best mentality to have, or the best mindset. All right, let me see. Mark, you're saying, as much as I want time to slow down, Callisto Protocol in December and Dead Space in January. Love Dead Space. Can't wait. Dude, I am so excited at the future of survival horror games. Like, there's only one missing now, guys. I mean, we're getting RE4 remake. We're getting Dead Space remake. We're getting Callisto Protocol. We're getting Alan Wake 2, which is going to be full-blown survival horror. These are all AAA games. All we need now, Silent Hill. We just need Silent Hill. And it'll be complete. So I'm a huge survival horror fan. It's like one of my favorite genres of games, if not my favorite. I mean, I'm really a big fan of survival horror. It's looking amazing. It's looking really amazing. And yeah, dude, I am so excited for Callisto Protocol. It looks way better than I anticipated. It does. And I actually just heard there was just some news that came out about it where there are going to be a couple of PlayStation exclusives for it. I don't know if I have it. I don't have it up in front of me right now, but there are a couple of like bonuses that are going to be PlayStation exclusive for the Callisto Protocol. So if you're somebody who's playing on PlayStation and you care about that stuff, I think one of the exclusives, somebody tell me in the chat, I think one of the exclusives is you get early access to it if you buy like the premium version or something like that. So something you might want to look into. I'll cover it in a video, obviously, that I'm going to make. All right, let me see here. I got a couple of other super chats we have. So thank you for that, Mark. Fervar458, you're saying PlayStation is the number one place to play, regardless, don't worry. Well, I mean, that's the thing, man, is like, I just don't imagine a future. Again, I'm not assuming anything. I am prepared to be wrong. But, oh, yeah. Real quick, hold on. MBG, did you see the Xbox showcase trailer? Kojima was there. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Because I did see that, and I was like, I'm like over here, I'm like, all right, just calm down, MBG. Don't jump to any conclusions. We don't know yet. We don't know. But yeah, I did see that. But Fervar, I think you're right. I was just going to say that I think Sony, look, I'll always say this because I just think it's the truth. Sony does care about the console, and they do care about the people who buy their console. And that's important to understand, where they care about those who buy the console enough to where I think that they feel obligated, especially because of their history and their heritage, just the history they have in the console space. I think Sony will always, to an extent, feel obligated to make sure they're doing something. Anything. It could be anything, but just something for the console owners. I could be wrong about that. We could eventually get to a point where they aren't doing that, but I just haven't seen Sony do anything yet that makes me feel like they just are done caring. I think that they're willing to tear down walls. I think they're willing to push the envelope and see how far they can push, but I just see them always caring to a degree, about the console player. Because that's what PlayStation is, right? Like it's a console. I know PlayStation is more than that now, but when you look at where it started and how it grew over the decades, there's something to be said for that. I've always said the same thing about Xbox too. I have, because I mean Xbox, it's literally a console. That's how it started. By the way, guys, yeah, hit that like button for me. We are almost at 500 likes already, which is awesome. So please hit that like button. Severin Evans, you're saying, MBG, you're right. We don't care about PlayStation or Xbox. Why is that an issue, though? Why should we? Also, why would we downgrade our experience for a console? Well, that's the thing is I know I talk a lot, obviously. I talk way too much. But just to clarify, I'm not saying that anybody should do anything. I guess I'm just trying to express that, like, if you are a PC player who, like, that's how you like to play, and you're like, I love PC, I'm the PC master race, I like to get the best experience, I like buying these expensive rigs and the whole thing, but you also are hoping that Sony will bring more games to PC, I think that's fine. Like, I'm not saying you need to downgrade, as you put it, to a console. I'm not saying you need to buy a PlayStation, or you should. I'm just saying that you have to understand to a degree that, that's not what Sony wants. Like, Sony doesn't want to encourage people to play on PC. They want to encourage people to buy their console for $500 and play on that console. And so, anybody who says, "Oh, I'm willing to wait for these games," then that's cool. Like there's no problem with that. And good, as the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. If you have the patience and you're okay with that, you don't have to care about PlayStation or Xbox when it comes to their consoles or their services. And I think both Sony and Microsoft are aware of this now. So it's kind of a balance. It's a balancing act where those who are, I just think it's kind of fair that if somebody's willing to invest into a console that a company's trying to sell you, that they try to, again, give you just a little extra perk, a few perks, I think that's fine. But, man, my son is not, he's hearing how I'm talking. He's like, no, don't go to PC. No, but I just think that it's up to each person, man. Like, if you prefer PC, stay there and play there and enjoy that. But I just wouldn't expect that every PlayStation game is coming. And I also want to anticipate that day and date is coming. I mean, it might, and if that is what you're anticipating, you might have to wait a long time for that to become a reality. That's why I'm just saying, like, for me, the way I am, I see the value in a console. I do see the value in exclusive games. It's like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with games going to other places or other platforms, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I am more of a traditionalist. I can't get away from that. I know that there are people who are like, oh, exclusives are toxic. Exclusives are bad. And it's like, well, I mean, look, exclusives to a degree, to an extent, are always going to be a thing. Content is king. You have competing platforms, competing consoles, competing services. Exclusivity is going to have to be a thing to some extent, And I just think that sometimes it does. I think exclusivity to a degree does drive further competition. I think it does drive further innovation. I think exclusivity, could be wrong about this, but this is just a hot take from MBG. I think exclusivity is what has pushed PlayStation Studios to the level that they're at right now, where like they're so focused on like we have like a reputation to kind of uphold, you know what I mean? And I just feel like if their games weren't exclusive to a degree and they couldn't really kind of push, I don't know, I guess you could say the bar for what a single piece of hardware can do, I don't know that it would be exactly the same way it is right now. But thank you for that, Severin. Big Nabs, you're saying, will PSVR 2 be as hard to get as the PS5 itself? I think so. Unfortunately, I do. I think that because it's going to be tethered to the PS5. Yeah, I hope I'm wrong about that, but I would fully anticipate it's going to be just as hard. Axis Hawk, you're saying, don't think day and date, but every game PC soon. Well, we'll see, man. We'll see. To me, the most telling sign for Sony, like the reason why, believe it or not, I'm just gonna say I would not be surprised if day and date does become a reality in the future. Is there was that job listing where Sony is looking to create their own PlayStation PC launcher, and I'm like that's a that's a pretty big sign. Rob, that's exactly what you said. You said exclusivity is over when Sony has a launcher for PC. It's a pretty big deal. I mean, that's why I'm trying to tell PlayStation fans, like, look, I still believe to a degree we'll get exclusives and whatnot, but expect anything from Sony. That's, I think, the best thing I can tell you at this point. Himanshu Yadav, I apologize. I feel like I always butcher your name. You're saying, hello, MBG. Last show I asked about your favorite guitarist, but you are a drummer. So now who are your favorite drummers? Some of mine are Danny Carey, Joey Jordison, Dave Lombardo, Mike Portnoy, etc. Dude, I mean, a lot of the drummers you just listed, Danny Carey is up there, dude. I'm a huge Tool fan, and I listen to what Danny Carey does, and I'm just mesmerized and also jealous because not jealous, but I just feel like, wow, I should just not try because I can't. But yeah, Joey Jordison, obviously legendary. Dave Lombardo, great with the double bass. Mike Portnoy. For me, dude, I think my favorite drummer of all time is John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. I was actually just watching his Moby Dick drum solos yesterday. I was watching his son as well, Jason Bonham. So I think he's my all-time favorite. But some other drummers, I mean, I've been listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers a lot lately, and I noticed Chad Smith, the guy who looks just like Will Ferrell. That's how a lot of people know him. He's doing, I think, his best work ever on the latest album. Like, he's really just going in hard. I love Chris Adler from Lamb of God. He's not, Taylor Hawkins too. Yeah, rip. Not the biggest Foo Fighters fan, but he was a great drummer. But Chris Adler from Lamb of God, he's no longer with Lamb of God, unfortunately. But man, he was he was the GOAT in my opinion. Some of the grooves he would come up with. Let me think here. I'm always terrible when I'm on the spot, but I mean, I'm trying to think of some. Oh, you know what? Avenged Sevenfold, the Rev. He passed away a while ago, but he was one of the best, and it's unfortunate that he passed away, of course. But I think he was on track to be like one of the greatest drummers in history. But yeah, I think for me, obviously, oh my God, Neil Peart. He passed away too, unfortunately. Neil Peart, obviously legendary. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of drummers that I'm failing to mention right now, just like I was with guitarists. But those are some of my favorite. And my all-time favorite, though, I gotta say, is John Bonham. I think he's just truly he's like the definition of like a legendary musician, a pioneer. So thank you for that. Pragmatic Hat, you're saying if it was day and date on PC, I'd be PC too, but it's not. Yeah, and that's the thing is like if they ever go that route and people want to buy PC, I mean, maybe Sony would be okay with that as long as you're buying their games. Rob, as you said, exclusivity is over when Sony has a launcher for PC. Severin Evans, you're saying, I didn't set the precedent. MBG, PlayStation went to the PC. We didn't come to them. Day and date, I don't know about that right now, but perhaps later. Yeah, and that's the thing, dude. That's the thing, Severin, is it's just, you're right. I mean, it's just a change in direction from PlayStation in general. And I think that as time goes on, it's just going to become like, if you guys remember, and this is where I'm going to end this topic so we can move on to the next, because I feel like I spent too much time on this. And I got to move back a little bit because my face is being cut off by the chat. If you guys remember, back in like 2017, 2018, when Xbox made those big changes and they were like, we're going day and date PC, Xbox Game Pass. I mean, it was, people were going berserk. People were going nuts, and they went nuts for like 2 years straight. But look at where they are now. Like, people get over it. You know what I mean? Like, the conversation dies and people are just like, okay, you know, it is what it is, you know, like, this is just where it's at. So I just kind of feel like, look, it's probably the same things to a degree going to happen with PlayStation, where as time goes on, you know, people are just going to stop caring. And that's why I reference these people who are going nuts about it right now and being jokers about it as the 3%, mainly because they just, you know, it's like you're trying to keep a conversation alive it's dying. You know, it's dying, and it's not gonna be this way. People are just gonna not care. And I just think that's the direction we're in. We're headed in. I think that's kind of already where it's at. That's why I said earlier, like, who is freaking out? Really? Like, who's freaking out about Spider-Man going to PC? You know, and there are these PlayStation fans, and I'm not, look, some of these PlayStation fans I'm about to say, they're listening to me right now. Maybe they don't listen to me, whatever, but, and I'm not saying this in a mean way. It's the truth, man. I know that there are PlayStation fans who are like basically coming out and saying like, well, Sony did this, but they're not going to do that. They did this thing, but they definitely won't do that. You need to let go, my friend. You really need to understand and accept, more importantly, that, dude, Sony's going to do whatever the F they want to do. Jim Ryan is going to do whatever the F he wants to do. And there's nothing me, you, or anybody else can do about that. And the worst thing I think you could do right now as a PlayStation fan is assume that you know what Sony's going to do, because you don't. I don't. Nobody does. It's okay to speculate. It's okay to, you know, give your opinion, but and you can have your opinion. And that's why it's like, there are PlayStation fans who say, yo, if Sony gives up exclusives, I'm done. Like, that's totally cool. Like, if they ever do that, you have every right to just be like, I went to PlayStation for their exclusives. They don't have exclusives anymore, so I don't care about PlayStation. That's totally fine. Like that, I think a lot of people would do that. Not everybody, of course, but probably a decent amount. So, yeah, you know, that's it. I guess that's where I can kind of end that. Alex Mercer, the prototype, you're saying Silent Hill and The Evil Within 3 would be great too. Yeah, dude, I would love to see The Evil Within 3. I mean, obviously I want to see Silent Hill, but The Evil Within 3, man. The Evil Within 1 and 2, especially the second one, are very underrated games. Pragmatic Cat, you're saying, I want to hook up the Alienware to the Sony TV and play day-and-date games on PS Plus for PC with my DualSense Pro 2 and not wait around for a Pro console. I mean, yeah, dude, I don't know. That sounds very much like where Xbox is right now. I mean, if that's ever a reality for PlayStation, Pragmatic Cat, I think we're years away from that. Okay. Chris B, you're saying, where is Sony's media streaming service? Sony Pictures, Crunchyroll, etc. I don't know. For some reason, they don't really want to involve any of that into PlayStation. I'm sure they have their reasons for not doing so. But, okay, so I did get a little bit off track. I do a little bit, right? I always get off track. Axis Hawker saying, Evil Within 3 will be an Xbox exclusive. True. That is true. I would definitely play that, though. I would probably play that on my Xbox or on my PC or something. I would find a way to play it if they make it. So I got a little bit off track just to kind of put a bow on this topic and finish this topic out. State of Play, I think, was a huge success, and I was ultimately really happy to see that Sony finally delivered a good State of Play. But we are far from seeing Sony's hand, and I think that's important. Thank you again, Space Gambler Jr., or whoever took care. I think it was Space Gambler Jr. we are far from seeing Sony's full hand revealed. As I said, 85% of PlayStation studios have yet to reveal what it is they're working on. Sony is sitting on a mountain of in development games right now. I have no doubt that when Sony does their proper showcase, again, likely in September, I think I don't want to say anything definitively or even imply that it's definitive, but I have a feeling that Sony will go pretty big with their next showcase. I don't think they're going to go all out. I don't think that's necessary yet, but I think they're going to go pretty big. And I think that they have a lot that they want to show their fans. I do. I think that there's just a lot that is ready to go. And I think the developers are also eager to show it off. So, I mean, as we said, we talked about this about a week or two ago, but Jim Ryan's literally said that they have 2 live service games that have not been announced that are coming out by March 2023. So between now and March 2023, there are 2 live service PlayStation games that are dropping. I mean, some of these games are just literally ready to go, man. And Sony's just sitting on them. Michelle Butts, you're saying, hi MBG, will the new Tomb Raider reboot be for Xbox only since Crystal Dynamics announced it for Unreal Engine 5? Really enjoyed the last 3. No, I think that the new Tomb Raider that's being developed on Unreal Engine 5, because keep in mind, Unreal Engine 5 is not exclusive to Xbox. It's also on PlayStation. It's everywhere. Tomb Raider and Crystal Dynamics are now owned by Embracer Group, and Embracer Group, as far as I'm aware, is a multi-platform publisher and developer. So I fully expect that the next Tomb Raider, or the new Tomb Raider, whether it's a reboot or not, I don't. Is it going to be a full reboot, or is it just going to be a continuation of the last 3 we got? But either way, it's gonna come to PlayStation for sure. Microsoft could try to like pay for exclusivity, but they don't really do stuff like that anymore. So I fully anticipate it will come to PlayStation. And Axis Hawk, thank you so much for becoming a new channel member. I really appreciate that, my friend. Channel member at the Greatness Awaits tier. So thank you so much for that. All right, so let's see. I do have other topics that we do need to discuss. Let me see. Okay, so that is one thing I do want to mention here, actually, because somebody brought it up in the chat earlier, and I definitely think it's worth talking about. So, Hideo Kojima and Kojima Productions. I'm definitely going to reiterate this. I'm going to reiterate this next Sunday, when Xbox does their showcase, and I'm going to say it here. All right. So I'm sure most of you saw the report, or at least some of you saw the report about abandoned and blue box game studios. Do you guys know the report I'm talking about? It was an extensive write-up by GameSpot, okay, where it basically revealed a bunch of weird stuff going on with blue box and abandoned. And after reading this report, it made me realize that, okay, I was totally wrong about that. I think that became kind of obvious, but I remember last year that I really thought, like, at one point, I really thought, like, this is it. This is Kojima. He's messing around. And over time, it was really hard to let go of that, because I was so convinced at one point. I was like, there's no way. And looking back on it, I still see how odd and how strange the whole thing was, and still is when you think about it. But after reading this report, it made me realize, because this report, it's worth noting, this report on abandoned and blue box, it was apparently pointing out that Hassan Karaman created like these private group chats where they were super exclusive to only people who were clearly still believing in abandoned or believing some stuff, and it got like pretty weird, man. Where they're talking about like romantic relationships and basically what the point is, the report basically seem to confirm that this is just a load of crap. And I don't know that it's like a scam per se, but abandoned like isn't a thing. It's like not a thing that's happening. It's not a thing that's coming. Um and hold on. Sorry. So yeah, that's what this expose pretty much was revealing, and I'm referencing this and I'm saying this because what it made me realize is that in all this time we learned nothing. There's only two things pretty much that we learned, and I'm referencing these two things because these are the only two viable things we have to go off of. Number one, depending on whether or not you believe Jeff Grubb, he claims that Xbox was trying to rope him in for an Xbox exclusive game, and they were ready to sign a letter of intent and the whole thing. And he said, I think he updated us this year. We said last he heard that that's still going on. Like that's still a thing that's happening. And then number two, we have Norman Reedus saying that, twice that, yeah, Death Stranding 2 is happening. And we also did get the explicit confirmation from Hideo Kojima himself that he's working on 2 titles. Chris B, you're saying, well, time to finally delete that damn app. Yeah. And so here's what I'll say. I want this to be on record right now. I am anticipating that Hideo Kojima will announce his Xbox project at the upcoming Xbox showcase. I want that to be on record right now, and I'm going to reiterate this next Sunday because I know that people are going to be like, oh man, MBG's hopes and dreams crushed. I mean, look, I'm just saying I'm fully anticipating it. Okay, I have always believed that he's doing something with Xbox. I especially believe it now with that little trailer that Xbox put out hyping up the showcase. They did put Kojima on, they showed Kojima in that trailer, and I'm like, all right, I think it's going to happen. But I want to also make it clear that I am fully anticipating that Kojima's still making a game for PlayStation as well. And I think that game is going to be Death Stranding 2. I want to believe the Silent Hill stuff, but I think it's truly just time to let it go. I mean, I still think it's crazy. I still hold on to the fact that Gamatsu claimed that they heard Kojima is the one working on Silent Hill. And look, I still think anything is possible, but just realistically speaking, and just to set expectations accordingly, I anticipate that Kojima's going to announce his cloud-based Xbox game. I think it's still going to be very early stages of development, but I think Xbox is going to try to make a big deal of the fact that we got Kojima, and I think they're going to do it before Sony makes it known that we're still working with Kojima as well. And I think that when we get the announcement of Death Stranding, I think we will get the announcement, is what I mean to say, of Death Stranding 2 potentially at the next Sony event, just because Sony wants to make it known we're still working with Kojima. Let me see here. Mark, you're saying, by the way, did you ever check out that gameplay for Madison? Pre-ordered my physical, comes out in July. Dude, I keep forgetting, man. Madison. Madison. I'm just going to keep saying it. I'm going to try to remember to check it out. You're saying it comes out in July. I'm going to look into that. Where did you get your physical copy, by the way? Where do you order it from? Because if I do get the game, I will definitely get a physical copy. I don't know. Maybe it's just you get it anywhere. I just don't know if it's like one of those you have to go to like a special retailer. At this point, I don't even know that I have to check it out. If it's a horror game, if it's indie, if it's cheap and it's coming out in July, physical copy, I'll probably just get it. Tech Noir, you're saying Hassan was looking for abandoned kids. Oh God. I'm not making any of those claims. No, I'm not saying it was anything like that. I don't think. I mean, Jesus, but it just seems to me like he just wanted to try to keep people on the hook, maybe. Maybe for monetary reasons eventually. I don't know. I'm just saying this is just what the GameSpot expose on Abandon. It was basically just saying it's like toxic chat rooms and there's like nothing actually being made. Pragmatic Cat, you're saying I recently rewatched all the evidence that PS5 exclusive Abandoned is actually a Hideo Kojima developed Silent Hill game video. It's real. Dude, I mean, look, here's the thing. I really thought about this because I know, dude, like you're Pragmatic Cat, you're talking about watching a video that I made, right? Like a video that I made where I'm like, this is real. But my whole thing with this is so bad. Like, what do you even do? You see what I'm saying? I'm telling you, it's not like things are not allowed to be taken this far, man. They're not. If Kojima just like came out and was like, got you, I was secretly Hassan. Like, dude, it's not. I don't know. I don't know how you turn this around. You don't. You're having exposés written up right now where they're talking about, chat rooms and secret chat rooms and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't think there's any, I don't know. I don't believe it anymore. I don't. I read that expose and I waited around long enough. Nothing is materialized. I'll just tell you this. Because I know, like, that's the thing, dude, is I know that especially some of my followers, because of how much we talked about this last year, I know that there's still people who, like, deep down, they're like, I still believe, man. I still believe. I get it. But I'm going to tell you this. Even if, like, let's just entertain the notion one last time, just to put the final nail in this coffin. Even if this somehow was like a Kojima thing, it's dead, dude. Like, this went south. This went badly. Like, if this was some kind of marketing, some kind of next level, like, we're gonna screw with your mind, it went wrong and it went bad. And that's the thing, is like, when we think about, oh, Kojima, he likes to mess with people, he likes to do this crazy marketing and really screw with his fans. Yes, but there's always a risk associated with that. And in this case, again, just entertaining the notion one last time that if that's what this was, it went wrong. It blew up. And they will never acknowledge it. They will, like this, it will slowly die and go away and disappear, and you'll never hear from it again. And when Kojima announces his next game, it's going to, like, this is just going to go away. Because you can't turn it around. You cannot turn it around at this point. And that's why I'm saying, like, guys, it's done. It's over. My prediction is, again, Kojima's next game announcement will be at the Xbox Showcase, announcing his partnership with Microsoft to make a cloud-based game. And then later on, we're gonna get the announcement of Death Stranding 2 from Kojima Productions as well. This is an Arcane Blitzer. Thank you again so much for the generous super chat, my friend. You're saying, MBG, most PlayStation fans can't wait to play PlayStation exclusives. They're not going to wait 1 to 4 years. Spider-Man PS4 for 4 years. Got my physical copy of Spider-Man. Even got my copy of Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4 a week before release. Plus, PC has no discs. And that's true. Yeah, if you are a physical collector like myself, which I think a lot of PlayStation fans are, that's a really good point. I agree with everything you just said there, Zanarcan Blitzer. And I think a lot of PlayStation fans are still very much traditionalists. I think Sony, to a degree, Sony has to be aware of that, right? So thank you for that, my friend. Rashdom V2, you're saying, what if that title on Xbox is Silent Hill? Well, then, then Xbox got me, bro. Like, okay. Like, if Xbox announces we have Silent Hill and it's being developed by Hideo Kojima, like, well, Okay, I guess I'm going to go play on Xbox. Not permanently, of course, but I mean, yeah, that will be a day one game I buy on Xbox and a day one game I play, but I don't think so. I mean, it could. I just don't see how that would materialize because there's been no indication of that. That would be a shocker. Pragmatic Cat, you're saying Kojima Productions art director laughed at the notion of Hideo Kojima making a game exclusively for Xbox. Look, man, I'm just preparing myself for that reality. I can't. Again, this is where my arrogance has burned me in the past, and I refuse to be arrogant. I'm being humble right now, and I'm saying, look, I think I'm going to assume that Kojima's making an Xbox game, because if I assume otherwise, I'm going to feel pretty let down. Like, if I'm going to sit here and say, yo, Kojima's making a PS5 exclusive for sure, they're working with Sony, and then this Sunday it's like Kojima comes out on stage and it's like, I'm happy to announce my new game is being made with Xbox. It's like, I'm going to look pretty dumb, and I'm going to feel pretty dumb too. So I'm just going to assume that he's working with both. See, the one thing I can't believe, is there are people, I don't think many people are saying this, but there have been people who said that Kojima isn't working with PlayStation anymore. That's just not a thing. I don't believe that for a second. There's no way Sony would let Kojima go. And I don't think, dude, Kojima likes Sony. I think people need to realize that Kojima is a PlayStation fan, like, genuinely. He's not like a fanboy or anything like that, but he likes PlayStation. I think he wants to make games for PlayStation. You know? So that's something we might want to keep in mind. So I do believe he's still with PlayStation, just not exclusively to PlayStation anymore. Tech Noir, you're saying, I genuinely didn't think you'd read it aloud. Sorry, just trying to make you crack up on screen. It's okay, man. I mean, that's the weird thing about that write-up from GameSpot is, like, towards the bottom of the article, like, the youngest member of this chat room was 12 years old, and I'm like, oh, this is getting, what's going on here, guys? Like, what this time last year, we were hyping this game up like it was going to be the next Silent Hill, Metal Gear, whatever. And then now we're getting exposés written up by GameSpot that are referencing 12-year-old chat members. And I'm like, I'm out. I am just out. I'm noping right out of here, you know? Like, I'm done. I'm out. It's all good. Tech Noir. Brandon Chad Perez, excuse me, you're saying, can we all take a moment to appreciate how incredible Final Fantasy 16 looks? Yeah, dude. Final Fantasy 16, I gotta say, you guys know, I'm not a Final Fantasy player, but even I'm like, this looks pretty sick, especially those summons. Like, those summons look amazing. And I think that's going to be a huge game for PlayStation. I do. I think that game's going to sell a lot of PS5 units. I know it's releasing on PC as well, but I don't know, man. I think that was a really, really big game for Sony to lock down, and I think that it's going to pay off big time. Not just when it releases in 2023, but throughout the entire generation. I have a question. Do I have to play the previous 15 Final Fantasy games to know what's going on in Final Fantasy 16? That's a genuine question. Like, do I have to play Final Fantasy 15 to know what's going on in 16? These are questions I need answers to, because I feel extremely intimidated. Hell no. I didn't think so. Somebody says yes? Pretty much everybody's saying no. No, it's all spin-off and reboots. Okay. All right. I figured that was the case. I'm like, surely nobody's expected to go back and play all these games, right? All right. So there's my weekly Kojima topic. But that's my predictions. That is my prediction, I should say, for Kojima Productions and what's going to go on. Okay, so here's something that I want to be sure to talk about, just because I thought it was really interesting. There's two topics where I did get the feedback from what you guys said last week I think it was my last podcast. At the end of the podcast, I asked you guys, do you want me to continue to talk about Xbox? Because I know this is a PlayStation focused podcast. Or do you want me to really like pull back on how much I'm talking about it? And a lot of you guys said that you do like it when I talk about Xbox. I just think that some people were giving me feedback basically saying like maybe try to, I don't want to say like rant less, but try to be more unbiased and fair or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But there are two topics here. One is regarding both PlayStation and Xbox, and the other is just simply about the Xbox showcase. I want to talk about this article I came across where it says here, Take-Two Interactive agrees with Sony that launching AAA games on subscription services is not financially viable. Now, I think this is just interesting because this kind of plays into Sony's current strategy, which we know Sony's current strategy is Sony says, look, we're releasing PlayStation Plus Extra, we're releasing PlayStation Plus Premium, but we're not following Microsoft's footsteps with our service and launching games day and date. And when people ask why, and people are questioning Jim Ryan and Sony, like, why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you matching that? They simply say because it's financially, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't work. At least it won't work for PlayStation. So we do have another major publisher kind of backing Sony up on this. And so I want to read a little bit of this with you guys. It says here, Sony's stance on PlayStation Plus Day One games is well known. None of the PlayStation Studios titles will be available on PS Plus the day they launch because it doesn't make economic sense. Sony has now found a supporter in the form of Take-Two Interactive CEO Strauss Zelnick, who has confirmed his company's games won't launch on subscription services for exactly the same reason. Zelnick is not against putting Take-Two Interactive's games on subscription services. After all, games like Grand Theft Auto 3, the Definitive Edition, and the BioShock Remastered Trilogy and Red Dead Redemption have all appeared on PlayStation Now at some point in the past. However, Zelnick told GamesIndustry.biz that he believes customers don't want to pay for subscription services that offer games day and date with subscriptions. Let me read that again. He says that he believes customers don't want to pay for subscription services that offer games day and date with subscription. And so this is the quote. He says, "We've supported various subscription services and we're happy to do so. Our skepticism has been around making frontline console products available day and date with subscription. And that doesn't make any sense to us because economically speaking, we don't think customers are prepared to pay for that. Why would they? And we can't afford to turn our business upside down in a way that doesn't make sense economically." So there always has to be an intersection between what the customer wants and what the publisher is able to do. It doesn't make sense to do that for frontline properties, in our opinion. And I think Sony minimally, the wording of this is so weird. Sony minimally agrees with us because they've said so. It can be potentially great for catalog properties. Those are properties that have been in the market for a while. If their price has been reduced, it can make economic sense to offer those on a subscription basis. It continues here by saying, however, Zelnick later added that Take-Two Interactive does not operate based on one person's opinion, including his, and that if players made it perfectly clear that day and date with a subscription was a mode they preferred, that's where they will be. Now, here's something really important that you guys, I need to emphasize this because I think that there's confusion with what he's saying. Strauss Zelnick is saying that he doesn't think people will want to pay for AAA games for a subscription service that offers day and date AAA games. What people I think are not understanding with his wording here, and I do think it's bad wording, he's making it sound like people don't want to pay for Xbox Game Pass and get AAA games. What he means to say is that they do not expect players are willing to pay the amount that would be required. That's what we need to understand here. So like, the big thing with Game Pass is it's like $10 a month. Realistically speaking, if anybody else tried to do that, like Sony or, if Take-Two Interactive decided to do that, they would have to, their subscription service price would be very expensive monthly. It would not be $10 a month. That's what he was, if I'm reading it correctly, that's what he meant. Because of course, people would pay, like people do want, most people, maybe not most, but at the very least, like people who don't want to pay full price for games, they absolutely want subscription services where, you can just pay a monthly fee and get those games dropped in. But it's just a situation where pretty much every AAA game publisher will tell you that, yeah, it's not financially viable. See, that's the thing, is like Microsoft won't admit that. Why would they? It's not a good look. Like Microsoft isn't going to come out and be like, yeah, this is not a good way to make money. I mean, they're not going to tell you that. You know what I mean? But everybody know, Sony, Take-Two Interactive, other major publishers, they're kind of looking at Xbox Game Pass and they're like, yeah, we couldn't afford to do that, and it's true. They wouldn't be able to. The only way they would be able to afford to do that is by charging more on a monthly basis. And that's the thing, is the price of Game Pass eventually will go up. And that's something that I think people do have to take into account anyway. But I just thought it was interesting that we have like a major AAA publisher here kind of coming out here, and you're starting to see, like, I don't know. I'm not saying that publishers are turning on Xbox Game Pass. They're not. It's not that at all. But it's just you see them kind of drawing the lines in the sand for now anyway. And Axis Hawk, you're saying Take-Two are hypocrites, to be honest. If it makes them money, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like Take-Two, I mean, what it is, what it is. I think it makes sense that when you think about premium games, I mean, Grand Theft Auto 6, for example, in what reality would we ever see a game like Grand Theft Auto 6 drop into a subscription service? You'll find it's as simple as this. Video game publishers that make good money off of selling their video games, not putting them into subscriptions, but selling their video games, whether it be at full price or like $50, whatever, $40, but they're selling their video games at a premium price point. You'll find that the publishers that make money doing that have zero desire to look at subscription services and attempt to put them in there. But something else that I do want to point out here is that we just learned that Stray, right? Stray, the upcoming PS4, PS5 console exclusive, is launching day and date into PlayStation Plus Extra and PlayStation Plus Premium. And this came as a bit of a surprise, but I think a welcome one. And this is where you're going to see Sony incorporate this strategy where, sure, they're not putting their exclusive games in their day and date, but no one said that they can't strike deals with third parties, especially games like Stray that make a lot of sense. So this is something we might want to pay attention to where, I'll tell you, for me, PlayStation Plus Extra might make sense for any games like Stray that, they're like medium-sized games or indie games that I'm interested in and they don't have a physical copy. I don't know. Is Stray getting a physical launch? I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure Stray's digital only. So yeah, getting that in PlayStation Plus Extra for me would make sense to a degree. But, Sony is still finding a way to kind of combat Game Pass in their own way where, yeah, we're gonna have our own third-party deals and we're gonna have our own incentives to get people to subscribe. But day and date doesn't have to be one of them for our exclusives. And I said it before and I will continue to say it again. You're saying that Stray is going to get a physical copy down the line. That makes sense. But I'm going to say it again. And what I would always say is Sony wants to get the best of both worlds here. And I think the important thing to kind of take away from this is that it's absolutely possible for Sony to get the best of both worlds here. I mean, Sony's going in everywhere, dude. This is where I try to tell people, like, look at what Sony's been focused on the past 2 years. They've been putting out games consistently. Like, I mean, we can all agree. Tell me if you disagree, but I'm pretty sure most of us can agree that Sony's been very consistent at releasing games on a timely manner, and making sure the games are quality and always giving PlayStation fans and PlayStation players something to play. But over the past 2 years, they've also been focusing on growing in other areas. They're growing on PC. They just announced their new service revamp with PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. And now they're talking about all their live service games that they're planning to launch in the coming years. And so you see just how Sony is really trying to branch out in a lot of different ways. And I think this is actually a really good thing ultimately, because the position, you know how there are like a lot of PlayStation fans that are like, I just want to see Sony only make AAA, big budget AAA single player games. Like, that's all I want from Sony. The problem with that, there's a very dangerous risk associated with that. And that is, well, when you're talking about these big budget AAA games, when we say big budget, I mean, we're talking big budget. Like, these are hundreds of millions of dollars that are being poured into these games. The big risk here is they have to land. You like if one of these games misses or fails, it is going to hurt Sony pretty badly. You know what I mean? And when you get locked into that, it's high stakes, high risk, high reward, but there can be a bit of a problem with that where it's like if the stakes become too high and the risk is too high, for as high as the reward may be, when that day comes when you can't, when I don't want to say Sony releases like a AAA flop, but a game that just doesn't meet the expectation, it's gonna hurt really, really badly. And that can result in less risk taking. That can result in things that become too formulaic to a degree in which it becomes nauseating, and this is why I am happy to see Sony branching out and finding different revenue streams, because it will allow them to be in a more viable position to greenlight more new IP. This is why I told people, like, I know everybody's hung up and fixated on, oh man, they're just doing games as a service. But it's like, did you see the part where they said that by 2025, they expect to have a 50-50 split down the middle where half of all their money is being invested into new IP? 50% of their money is being invested in currently existing IP and franchises, but 50% of that money is also going to go into new IP. That's huge. That is huge, man. And the only way Sony can do that comfortably is by finding other ways to make money and by finding other revenue sources. So that's why I like to see Sony doing these different things. And I hope that they work out, obviously. Pragmaticat, you're saying maybe Xbox could make Game Pass tiers like PlayStation Plus, because I hate Murder Simulator Rockstar. I love Capcom, but even Capcom is bordering on remake fatigue. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for the tier system that Sony has implemented. And you do got to wonder, like, I mean, they are leading the way to a degree with their service, where it's like they're doing tiers, they're doing trophies for some PS1 games and stuff like that. And these are things that Xbox hasn't done with Game Pass. And, again, you are seeing Sony try to compete in their own way with the service. So, but I do agree. I think sometimes when you look at Capcom, maybe they, I don't know. Pragmatic Cat, I don't know if I can agree with you with the Capcom remake fatigue, because I am the person that is utterly excited for Resident Evil 4 remake. So it would be a little bit hypocritical if I agreed with that. Aiden, you're saying maybe we'll see Deviation Games IP at Summer Game Fest. Oh, that would be great. That would actually be a pleasant surprise. I'm really interested in seeing what Deviation Games is working on. They've been working on their game for a while now. I hope it lives up, man. I mean, I do not know what to expect from it, but I hope it lives up, whatever it is. I mean, I know it's going to be a shooter. I know that it's being made by Call of Duty veterans, Treyarch developers, the developer of Call of Duty Zombies. So I think there's a high expectation there. And I just hope that whatever they show, it looks awesome. Because I'm definitely excited. All right. So I do have to let you guys know, I do have plans today, so I can't make it a 4-hour podcast. I'm going to strive to I don't know why my nose is running like that. I'm going to strive to hit the 3-hour mark, but at the 3-hour mark, I'm going to have to go. So for the final topic of this episode, and I think it's okay. I think it's okay that this episode's shorter than normal, although I think 3 hours is still pretty long. But I'm going to be streaming a lot more this month, obviously. So let me see here. What do I want my final topic to be? I'm sorry, I keep snorting into the mic. Okay, we'll just make this the final topic. We'll talk about the Xbox Game Showcase, like I said. Talk about that for a little bit because I just kind of want to gauge our expectations. I am going to be tuning into this, and I am going to be reacting to it, like I said. So the one interesting thing that I heard about this showcase that has me definitely, I'd say, more excited than previous years, if it's true, is it's... Oh my God. Sorry. Is that apparently they're going to have a lot of gameplay to show. And I know that sounds like strange because it's like, well, yeah, but apparently, thank you, Space Gambler Jr. You've been doing work today. I appreciate it, man. Everybody appreciates it. Tired of seeing that nonsense in the chat. We've heard that apparently Microsoft made a mandate for all of their studios that they have to have gameplay ready to show. And if this is true, I think that the Xbox Showcase has a really good chance of actually being like really good, because the thing is, last year with the Xbox Showcase, they revealed a lot of games. Like Xbox was just like, new game, here's a game for everybody, and that was great, but we didn't really see much gameplay at all. And that was my main criticism, where it was like, well, it's hard to be super excited for a lot of this stuff when you just don't know what it's going to be. You know what I mean? Like, they announced games like Contraband, and that's cool, Like, yeah, what about Fable? Are we going to be seeing some Fable gameplay? I want to see some more. I want to see State of Decay 3 gameplay. I want to see some more Hellblade 2 gameplay. I don't know if I said that already. Yeah, where's Perfect Dark? Avowed, I think people are hoping to see. And the thing is I'm going into this Xbox Showcase. I'm going into this Xbox Showcase hoping that they show gameplay that gets me extremely excited about at least one of their games. I mean, we're probably going to see Starfield gameplay, and I'm going to be honest, like, I feel like it doesn't matter if I say this because people aren't going to care, but like, I'm not excited for Starfield. I'm just not. It's nothing against Starfield. It's just not my cup of tea. So, if Starfield's gameplay is like amazing and everybody's like, oh my God, I don't know that I'm going to share in that excitement, because I don't play Bethesda RPGs. I've never liked Bethesda RPGs. I don't think that's going to change with Starfield. So that's a game like I fully expect to see, but I'm probably not going to care too much about it. Redfall, I don't know. Like, I do not like the aesthetic of Redfall that much. It's okay. Like, it looks okay. Redfall, I want to see some gameplay. Redfall, I think, has a decent chance of winning me over, depending on what they show, if they show gameplay, and if it looks good. But I don't know. I'm ready to just kind of be wowed by Xbox. A lot of people gave the Xbox Showcase last year like an A rating or grade. And I just didn't agree with that, because I was like, look, it was solid. It was a good showcase, and they had back-to-back announcements. But I just was kind of like, I mean, we didn't see many, we didn't see much gameplay. And that's something that I hope for Sony as well. I want to see, I said this on my stream for the state of play, and this is where I think there's a big difference between the way Sony does things and the way that Microsoft does things. It is imperative that Microsoft has a lot of gameplay to show off at their event because they don't have state of play. You know what I mean? Like if Sony does a showcase and they show like a, I don't want to say a CG trailer, but just like a basic story trailer for a game, it's kind of like, yeah, you can do that, and that's okay because we know you're going to do a dedicated state of play for that game if it's a big enough game. And we're going to see like literally 15 to 20 minutes of raw gameplay, and that's fine. Microsoft doesn't do that. So this is why I just feel like when they do a showcase on the 12th, yeah, I think it's a good idea that you have it as a mandate that all of your studios have gameplay ready to show. And dude, it's going to be fun, man, because the time has come. The time has come. Xbox, your 2022 looks barren. 2021, you were saved once again by Forza. It's, back in 2018, you announced you acquired all these studios. We haven't really seen too much from them. You've acquired all of Bethesda. You're still in the process of acquiring Activision Blizzard. You gotta show up, man. Like, no more excuses. No more excuses. And I say this as somebody where I'm not even looking for them to really win me over. I'm kind of over it at this point, It's just they have to show up, and I'm giving them a good chance. Like I think that they have a good chance at this point. How couldn't they, right? Like, how do you have all of these studios, all of this IP, and not have gameplay and a good event? I mean, it's gonna have to happen. They and I also want to say, we've been hearing all these reports. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? And this is why I'm particularly intrigued about Xbox's show. Crispy, you're saying if they show a lot of gameplay, but say wait until 2023 or early 2024, it will be really bad for Game Pass. Xbox will be fine. Xbox I think is going to be fine no matter what. I think Xbox is going to be fine no matter what. And I do think that that's the thing. It's going to be important for them to, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull anything out of their hat for 2022, maybe, but maybe they do. Maybe they have something ready to go that they were saving in case of like a last minute delay, like what we saw with, for Starfield and Redfall. Manchu, you're saying Avowed gameplay is there. Jez from Xbox 2 said it. Okay. Yeah, I think it's about right. The timing is right to see some Avowed. All right. So what I was trying to say, and thank you guys for the super chats. What I was trying to say is that I think it's going to be really interesting to see what these gameplay demos end up looking like, because we've been getting all these reports on like seemingly a monthly basis where apparently Xbox is still struggling with their management and they're too hands off, and it's burning them and whatnot. Now the time has come. You acquired these studios. I've been seeing Xbox fans hype up these studios, hype up these IP, these games. I really am going to be looking at this gameplay that is revealed with these different games, and I'm going to be critical of it because that's been the big problem with Xbox, guys, for a long, long time, is that they make this game, they make that game, they release this game, they release that game, and the games just on like a fundamental level are just, like they're just not, in my opinion, most of them are just not that great. And I'm not saying every game that we see has to look amazing, but people are hyping up Avowed, right? Like that's a good game where it's like there's hype around Avowed. I'm anticipating that when we see that game, we're going to see gameplay. I'm expecting it to look pretty damn good. I'm not saying I'm expecting it to blow me away, but I definitely don't expect something mediocre, right? And I expect something very good. And that's kind of my expectation for all of these studios, or almost all of them, and all of these games, because, this is where we've been told over and over again that, look, Xbox is good now, man. They're turning it around. They have all these studios, they have all this talent, this dev talent, they have this, they have that, Game Pass, the whole thing. When I see did you guys see the recent report of Fable? Like, they were saying that, yeah, they had to downscale the game. I'm not going to jump on them for that. It would be easy to do so, but I'm not going to, because it is true that a lot of games during development have to be scaled down and the scope has to be reduced. And I think that's a good thing, because when you are becoming overly ambitious and you decide to feed that ambition, when in reality you actually should be reeling it in, that's usually the difference maker between a disaster of a game and a game that's actually turns out good. So I think that, but with that being said, that's not an excuse. When I see Fable, it's going to have to look good. It can't look just good enough. It can't look okay. The expectations are high, and they should be high, because that's the thing is I just, everybody wants to hype up the studios. Everybody wants to hype up the IP and this and that. It's that's fine. Let's be excited. I mean, let's all be excited. Let's hope for the best, but we're going to have to be critical of it as well, because in my opinion, and this is where I'll end it, Xbox still has something to prove, and they have yet to prove it. And maybe this is the year where they will prove it. And if they're planning to show up with as much gameplay as everybody is apparently making it sound like they're going to, well, then maybe this is the year. If we get back to back game demos, gameplay trailers, this could be great. But anyway, guys, my son is getting upset because we have some things to do today, and I'm holding us up. So that is going to do it for episode 112 of Press X Podcast. I want to extend a massive thank you to everybody who joined, everybody who watched, especially all those of you who donated super chats. Big shout out to all of my members. You guys are awesome. Devil Shooter is going to do the super chats. He said or not the super chats, the timestamps. He said I'll have them up probably tomorrow. So just be patient for that. Once he does, I will obviously, I'll heart that comment and I'll pin it. So yeah, big shout out to Devil Shooter. Shout out to all my members. You guys are awesome. I can't promise that every episode of the podcast in the month of June will be 4 hours plus. I mean, 4 hours is always a lot, but we will be doing more live streams than usual this month because of the events and stuff. So yeah, that does it. I'm trying to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Oh yeah. On your way out, guys, please hit the like button. Maybe we could get to 600 likes by the time, this is done processing. But all right, guys, I will catch you the next time I stream this Thursday for Summer Game Fest. I'm looking forward to that. We should be getting something from PlayStation, maybe a few things, maybe. So I'll be streaming that event, and then we'll be doing the Xbox event on Sunday, not too long after. In between that time, I'll keep the content flowing. You guys keep watching and showing your support. Show your support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. I hope everybody has a good Sunday, and yeah. All right, guys, take care.